Can I clear this? No, apparently I cannot. Okay. I'm wondering. Okay, so I can. Alright, I'm gonna do some tests because I don't know what the fuck is going on. Shit. So.
Even though he's probably just gone out the pit lane as that red flag came out, the engineers would have said, right, map 7, do
Okay,
this,
I'm gonna do a custom race with only 2 drivers.
This lap, what do we get?
So it's just me and someone else, and then I'm gonna check the other car.
How does the hybrid system cope with it?
And
all
see
of those little things that they can still use red flags
modify
to gain some knowledge.
Yeah, unlike often where
it is.
Usually rehearse
Is it modified?
Safety car,
Okay.
It looks as though the Toyota might have just done that. That last lap, 9 minutes and 10 seconds to get around, so 3 times longer than you would expect. I think he was very unlucky with the time of that car.
Yeah. That's at the last lap, isn't it? Yeah. So at the last lap.
That's because Jack Miller stopped at the chicane here.
Or down.
And just so, his car was a lot of trouble. He didn't think he was going to make another lap. Romain Dumas, part of the Rebellion squad this weekend. Lots of experience to his name.
Last winner, of course, Pro. And then 2-time overall.
Rather changing up this one.
But the bumpers didn't change. So it's still that. Why? Okay, and then upgrade random engine spec.
Virtual Le Mans and GP3 podium.
Upgraded.
To F2. Oh yes, sorry, what am I talking about? GP3. I've been paying enough attention to
Jean-Denis Delatraz's son.
Okay.
Many times.
Take here. SC1. No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
driving a lot of different cars. Doing F2, doing this. He's also in the SRO World Challenge, I think.
Alright, I'm thinking, okay,
GPX.
maybe.
Porsche. So yeah, he's doing the rounds. But it'll be interesting for him to have his first few laps around Le Mans. A great circuit, of course, and he's in a great car to do the first few laps. So all the cars now in the pit lane. Richard Westbrook there with his another one of Peter's old teammates here at Le Mans. Richard recently was with the Ford GT program, which is no longer. Joined Aston Martin, joined the Dane train of Sorensen and Tim, and is a very good welcome addition to that team. Brings a lot of experience.
Of different marks, you know, he's had experience in the Corvette, he's had experience in the Ford.
Yep.
Now he's in the Aston Martin. He can always bring different ideas and philosophies from all the different brands to Aston Martin and help them out.
Yeah, Rich is lovely guy, very quick driver, solid, reliable, fast, and as you say, has got a lot of experience around here and generally in GT cars.
I forgot about Porsche. I forgot Porsche.
He's driven everything.
He was a British Carrera Cup champion and Super Cup champion.
Yeah, that's right.
25 years ago, I might add.
Factory driver for Porsche for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, and came over to GT1 World Championship.
Yeah.
So 2010, 2011.
It's not.
So he's been with Porsche,
It's not F1. It's the Le Mans race.
Corvette, Aston. He's done the rounds. Yeah.
Nice little picture there of Bowen.
I missed the
Brendan Hartley on the left.
2020
Talking
competition.
about the rotation of the car. Hand signals are all universal in racing driver speak, aren't they?
Do it like this.
I'm very interested in what Toyota is doing because they won the last few races, which was
picking up the
Totally new and
conversation,
different,
of course,
because
the car is kind of
usually
on
winners
a
were
life support
Porsche,
machine at the
Porsche
moment,
or
keeping
Audi.
itself alive, and you can hear all that
And or
rattling going on,
or
and then Buemi's having to shout over the top of that
or Peugeot.
to be able to communicate with his two teammates.
Yeah. So I want to see like how Toyota does for this year.
Deep in discussion. Well, they're looking good at the top of the field. They've got the two fastest sectors, a little bit off, 4 tenths off in the first sector to the Rebellion car.
Of course, I'm just listening to the background. I mean, it's gonna cover 24 hours, which is pretty intense. I'm not gonna remember any of it.
ahead of the Rebellion car. So looking good. Sebastian, obviously a very experienced driver around here, 2-time winner, Formula E champion, a very experienced driver.
I'd say he didn't look that happy. He was being quite French about the whole thing. There was lots of kind of gesticulations going on.
And then that
Vehicle
was his
spec.
engineer
Okay, so I have a reference to
sticking his head
this.
in the door, getting a bit of a mouthful as well. So yeah, and he's wanting some
I can
improvements made
modify
to that car. He's
Yeah,
just
but
not quick enough.
He's
that. I can give that a
I think
new.
it's just because he's explaining it with the hand signal. It's not a bad thing.
Oh wait.
The engineer understands it better. Alan used to do the same.
Aggressive sort, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
See, he just punched me.
1.3 seconds to the good of their teammates right now on the timing screens. Into the 19s at the moment in the number 8 machine. 1.36 back is the number 7, and then 3.4 the nearest other car. Daniel Berton. Plenty of discussions going on between teammates. Quite nice to see at the moment. Of course, not the opportunity to get laptops into the cars and kind of properly analyze telemetry and data. It's more kind of bits.
All I could do is
scribbles
do
of paper.
get upgraded.
Yes.
And you do a.
They're just describing how the balance is,
Okay.
feeding
And
that
then
information
do
back.
get.
So we see the
Get-
IDEC car, the second IDEC car, to be in the wall with substantial damage. Again, if the chassis is okay, and that we can see the crash box there, which has done its job. It's got to compress so much, but not too much. They're quite strict, the FIA, with the ruling on the crash testing. But again, if there's no chassis damage, that car will be repaired and hopefully back out this evening.
Does look like it's gone quite flush straight into the barrier there. The way that the front end is folded so kind of neatly in comparison to not so much damage on the left and right hand side.
Yes, as we see a picture of the pit straight here at Le Mans. Bit sad for me in a way, because that grandstand on the right hand side is normally full for Thursday night qualifying, but or practice. Something we'll have to get used to.
I think we know what's happened in the Toyota garage now. Brendan's not happy about his teammate. Having a nice discussion, talking about the car setup.
Johnny Molam. Ferrari.
Fuck. Vehicle
River
spec.
Motorsports, I
Dot.
think it is, with,
Yeah, he retired a few years ago,
Body
didn't he?
kit specs
Yeah,
equals.
he's back for about a month or 2 minutes.
Let's see. Vehicle spec.
Yeah.
Dot.
His own team now running Bonamy Grimes,
Engine
stepping Bonamy up
specs
from
equals.
4 years ago. Never sat in a car before, and actually a good old mentor of mine, Andrew Marriott, was working with him on the Steve.
Okay,
McQueen
let's do it one at a
film.
time. Okay,
And
so
Bonamy was one of the producers, one of the men.
it's gonna get
behind
this,
getting
and
it onto
then
screen at the Cannes Film Festival. They were chatting about how Bonamy could race at Le Mans, and in comes Johnny Molam, and 4 years later, here they are at Le Mans for the first time.
Bob's your uncle, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Bonamy Grimes, the founder of Skyscanner. So many interesting stories for the gentleman drivers around the paddock, much of which I don't know much of, but Graham Goodwin in the depth of night will be able to tell you about every single one of them for sure. There's the telemetry now. So Buemi's finally got some scribbles to look at and discuss with Brendan Hartley.
Hey, so B probably, he's a little bit off in Sector 1 to the Rebellion, so they're probably having a look at that, and he's comparing notes and seeing which driver's a bit quicker in the odd corner, and he wants to go out and have another go.
There's the fleet of Aston Martins. You can see how tight the pit lane is, even if we're not at full capacity grid. There is the possibility of 62 cars here at Le Mans. We've only got 59 cars, although actually we've got 60 garages set up, and the way that the garage is set up means that you can't really give anybody any extra space. So nose to tail, if all the cars had to come in at the same time. You can see just how tight it would be. Two pro
Okay,
cars in the
so
AMP car, and
return
hopefully getting going
new
on
vehicle
the
part
hour.
kit specs.
But
There you
tell
go.
you what, we haven't quite seen the barrier repairs. That will be the thing that's most crucial.
Okay, and this one.
In a moment's time, that second IDEC car to be in the barrier will appear, in our view at least, at the Ford chicane.
2 minutes to restart.
And that will give us 1 hour's worth of running. 4 o'clock local time here at Le Mans. And 5:15 will be the start of our qualifying session. And imagine, if you're out on circuit right at the end of this free practice session, it's going to take you 6 odd minutes to get yourself back into pit lane, to fill the car up, to prep the car for qualifying. You've only got yourself 10 minutes before you need to be ready again. It's not really another session. In terms of the timing screen, it's another session, but for these guys, it just rolls straight through, Peter.
Yeah, so everything's so
Engine
tight this year,
spec.
as we've talked about already, and it's a new experience for all of them.
Oh wait, now I gotta
You know,
flip these.
the
Fuck.
cars that survive
Okay.
and don't get crashed, or those teams are that bit better prepared. But obviously, I
Engine
think I've got
spec.
a bit of an issue with two damaged cars, and the other situation, I'm not sure, because they're separated by I think it's this car, the 17 car is in a separate box, isn't it? So I'm not sure the mechanics can actually move from one box to the other box because of the COVID rules.
Ah, yeah.
So
No, I think they're in the same box.
no, there's two IDEC cars in the same box, and then there's another car.
Yeah, but I think these two are in the same.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're in the same.
Right,
So when I
then-
saw the box yesterday,
Right.
it
Okay.
was,
That's not an issue then.
So we had a couple of cars at the end of free practice 1 doing 2 slowing down laps, or seeing the checkered flag twice. They got small fines for that, one of which was Romain Dumas in the Rebellion car, the other of which was Maurice Chen in the 72 car. More critically though, in this particular, in FP1,
New
Thibaut
engine
Bouret
spec.
in the
Okay.
21 Dragon Speed machine did not slow down quick enough in a slow zone, and therefore will be given a 20-second penalty for his first pit stop in the race. Quite an interesting penalty,
wow.
rolling from free practice all the way through
Okay,
to
so
race
that-
conditions.
I think that might have
I
fixed
guess
it.
he
Let's
came in
take a
very
look.
hot into a yellow flag zone then.
Yeah, and it does say it says required time and accelerating too early as well. So he tried to preempt the end of it, and that's another learning thing.
Ooh, I
about
don't
the
see.
Maldives.
I don't see any upgraded. It's probably a team car.
Isn't getting you any
Well, not in free practice 1, that's for sure.
Oh no, it's not.
But you
Wait
can
a
see
minute.
just how much
Wait a
these
minute.
stewards
No,
are
no,
having to
please.
deal with. That's a decision that's only just come out,
Oh,
and they're still looking at free practice 1.
Parts.
So anything that does happen in free practice 2 will be reported to a little bit later. There they are in Dames, the full female crew, the second of the full female crews. The LMP2 crew, the Richard Mille team, very much supported by the FIA and the Females in Motorsport Drive from Michel Mouton, who kind of heads up that campaign. She'll be out at Rally Turkey this weekend as the safety coordinator for the FIA, but I'm sure one eye will be very much on what's happening here at Le Mans with her team,
Ooh, we did something.
Sebastian Bourdais, for Risi Competizione.
All right, let's take a look at this.
Nice to see that
Let's take
Sebastian
your
got himself
supercharger.
full-time
Aha,
in
yes, this car
once again next year,
officially.
missing him from single-seater competition in IndyCar
Okay,
this
okay.
year.
So it looks like I did it.
I was
Looks
just
like I did it.
chatting
Looks like I
with
did it.
Graham offline a second.
Oh fuck!
and,
What the fuck is happening?
Yeah, I
Ah,
think
shit.
that penalty is quite
Alright, I
harsh.
gotta
She
do
just
a new
read
thing.
out about a
Okay.
20-second penalty in the race for not slowing down enough in the slow zone. So
In free
just
practice.
in free practice.
Yeah.
So just to explain to you all, they've come into a slow zone. You've got the first yellow flag that the drivers come across, and they've got to be going 80 kilometres an hour when they get to that level with that yellow flag. He's obviously gone flying into the slow zone, maybe doing 160 as he's crossed the yellow flag. Don't know quite how they know what the speed is, but to transfer that penalty from FP2 to the race at the first
Okay,
stop.
so looks like it's done.
Graham was just saying to me that Eduardo doesn't forget what's happened so far this
Some of the
year.
colors are really intense. I gotta limit that.
Right.
And it looks like this car is just copying
This race, so
that color. It's
interesting, you
weird.
know, the drivers have got to
Super
be good
weird.
all season. If you get a bad rep,
I gotta do wheels too. That'll be fun.
2001, I think.
That would be
yeah,
fun.
I'm old. But so's he. But he's been here now for a long time. He's a great guy. He does a good job, and I think he's pretty impartial. And a spade is a spade, you know. So, but you know, he's not going to forget a driver that is consistently flouting the rules and breaking the laws, and you know, being a naughty boy, let's say. Whereas the one it's a one-off, and it's the first time he's done an offence, maybe he would have just got a 1 minute hold in the pit lane during free practice. So yeah, amazing how a different perception of the rules. So slight delay still. We're waiting another 2 minutes, so until we go green, or just over a minute. So that barrier repair obviously taking a little bit longer.
And just going through the cars, which actually didn't pick up on the fact we haven't seen the 16G drive car.
1 minute to resume.
We may have mentioned that a long time ago. Race director didn't hear that one. Turn that up. Maybe he didn't speak. Looks like we are going to be going racing in back to green in 50 seconds time. Cars are queuing up. A lot of cars are queuing up at the end of pit lane. It's going to be very congested. So haven't really got to the bottom of that one. G drives number 16 car with no time in this session. That was the right. We did see that car up in its Jackson, didn't we? Ryan Cullen, Ollie Jarvis, and Nick Tandy car. That was up on its Jackson at the start of the session, but you kind of expect it to be running by now. So they are one of only 2 cars not to set a time in this session. The other car being the Rebellion that we have seen have engine
10,
issues
9, 8,
already,
7,
and they've been working
6,
on that for the last couple of
5,
hours.
4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is open. Pit exit is open. Session has
Back to
been
green
resumed.
flag conditions,
You can ask.
and everyone filtering the way out the pits. They want the clean air. They want to be able the opportunity to run in clean air as they come out onto track for at least 1 or 2 laps, and it does look like everybody. Why is everyone going out, Peter? Why is it so critical now with just an hour left?
Well, to get ready for qualifying, I guess. Yeah, I mean it's all a bit of a rush now. They've had 2 red flags, and as we talked about, that time just kept ticking down. So they're short on time. They're already short on time this year, but they're super short on time now, and they never know what's going to happen. There could be another red flag coming.
And as you can see, filtering out of pit lane. Not sure there'll be many cars left in pit lane once we've got all this queue of cars onto track. Just the 2 IDEX Sport cars that we've seen cause the red flags in this session. They'll be in pit lane. The Rebellion engine change going on for them. Something going on with the G drive by Algarve car. But ultimately everybody else looks like they're trying to maximise this last hour. Get their cars good for qualifying, and then aim for that top 5 in the next hour at 5:15, which is literally in about an hour's time. It's Toyota number 8 ahead of Toyota number 7 in LMPH. Rebellion number 3 faster than the Bicoles right now, and the Team Netherlands 29 LMP2 is the fastest at the moment by about 3 seconds over the United Autosports 22 car. Philip Hansen now aboard that car, sharing that car with Paul DeResta, who set that time a little bit earlier on. The G-Drive 26 car.
Okay, I think I can put this on the back burner for now.
Porsche, Aston Martin,
But it's good
Porsche
to see that this
in
is
GT
working and I
Pro.
developed a system that knows how to deal with it.
So in answer to your question earlier,
But yeah, I need to
at the moment lost 70 minutes.
I might have to do tires. God damn it.
Through the red flags. He's a new Graham Goodwin.
Well, hey, you've got the strategy computer there. It should be your thing. Alan's going to keep it for the full 24 hours. I'm going to get bed with it. It's very useful, that computer. It's very, very useful. Right, on board with the number 8 car. Plenty of traffic to contend with. Don't know how far we're going to be able to take him, but it does feel like we're a bit further into the lap than we have been previously with Sebastian Buemi.
Full sun.
Yeah, we're at the bottom of the circuit now, which is good news.
The team have probably made a couple of adjustments after all of his hand actions, and probably doing a run, and those changes have made an improvement.
Again, another driver who, Buemi seems to have been around forever, and he's only 31.
Yeah, incredible. Alan
He's-
looks sharp.
In fact, I'm sure he started before I started. I'm sure I was racing against him in cars.
I think you've got memory problems.
Yeah, that could well be true.
When you're racing karts, do they have plastic bumpers or are they still the metal one? Your feet with the bumpers?
Yeah, there's definitely no plastic going on. There wasn't even side pods or anything.
No side
There
pods.
was, metal bars.
Good old Larkle.
Alright, I want to generate vehicles to buy. That's what I want to do. That's the whole point of adding this generation system, so I could do that.
Swings into the right-hander, probably in fifth gear, flat through the two lefts. You can see the green flag waving there. And then into the long
Exchange.
right-hander downhill.
Generate exchange vehicles. That's the whole point of this thing.
Accident. He goes down to the final Ford chicane.
If this is going to be a push, you can see how many cars are ahead of him. We can see out of our window there are plenty, but flashing in front of the camera, he's going to have a lot of traffic to contend with.
He's just backed off, actually. See, he's let that LMP2 car catch up to give him a gap, and what he's hoping is that he can clear the first sector with no traffic, and then catch all of those cars that just went flying by our window on the Mulsanne.
Yeah.
And the team will have a tracker. They'll have the track map with all the GPS positions of each of the cars, so they will be able to kind of plan and forecast exactly where he might catch all of those cars.
Yeah, I think it was probably just him doing that on his own then, but you're right, the team can look at it, and he's clear so far. He's got one corner to go.
Maybe I could press up and down
And you know,
to
if he does
sort,
catch
maybe?
Cars, if he still can do the fastest sector for the car, he knows what it can do, and he can always.
I should add that function at some
later
point
on
in the
with
future.
The second and third sectors.
Well, this is Antonio Felix da Costa. The first sector for Buemi was
Instead
not
of
faster than his teammate has been so far, but this is the fastest sector 1 that this car has done so far in the session. Antonio Felix da Costa is 12th in LMP2 right now, 16th overall, and down to the second chicane. Nice and early on the throttle there. Not so many
Issue
cars. You can see
fixed.
a glinting of a car in front.
Tell me that.
But the
Tell
speed
me
differential
shit.
is not quite so drastic from LMP2 to GTs as it is for the LMP1 cars, right?
P2's quite punchy now. They're not slow. I mean, Alan probably would be able to tell you 3:27 was quicker than the R8, quicker than the R10, quicker, about the same as the R15. R10. So, you know, not far away from an LMP1 from not so long ago. And, you know, when these cars got a big upgrade with aerodynamics and mostly engine power, they're really not slow cars anymore, you know. Doing 201 round Spa, which is quicker than an LMP1 car from 7 or 8 years ago. So they're not slow. And I think there is a bigger gap, and it is slightly easier for them to overtake the GTE cars now than it used to be, because you used to see them going side by side down the straight for a good 500 meters, whereas now they do tend to fly by them.
As you can see from the live timing at the bottom of the screen, Will Stevens is also on a push lap here. 11th position, 7th in class for the Jackie Chan DC Racing 37 machine. Just a little bit further up the road by about 10 seconds than Da Costa. Both run by Jota. Both on the Goodyear tyre as well. And it'll be Will Stevens who'll break the beam first. Where does this put him? Over the line and up into second fastest. Still second slower than that time we saw from De Vries at the start of the session. Da Costa comes to the line and third fastest for him, 1.2 off, so 0.3 of a second slower than Will Stevens, but still a long way off that that Nick De Vries time, a second off that Team Netherlands car, and from what we saw, no traffic, but a different tyre.
Different tyre and maybe different fuel loads. Maybe the Jota car, the Jackie Chan car running slightly more fuel, full tanks. quite unusual for teams to show their hand too early, and maybe the Racing Team Netherlands car has gone for it.
Toyota did a 23.5 with the Bohemi that last time. Pachito Lopez in the 7 car in pit lane right now. And Jackie Eeks in the Rebellion garage by the looks of things, visiting many an old friend.
Free practice.
Always welcome in the paddock here at Le Mans. Always a guest.
Warm up, race hour. That's what I wanted to hear. Practice gets pretty long.
On the hypercar and the LMDH rules, where IMSA and the ACO are working.
Wait, did this? What does this shirt say? Does it say penis? No, it doesn't say penis. Hold on. What does this fucking say on the shirt? Definitely looked like that, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, there's all sorts of new
Panis. Panis. Oh god, it looks so close to penis. That looks so close to penis. Oh my god. Doesn't that look like penis? I had to stop and like make sure I read that correctly.
On the hypercar and the
I was like, what did I just read?
IMSA and the ACO are working to basically unify sports car rules across the globe. So what's the challenge?
Right.
13.26 kilometers of perhaps one of the most historic, maybe barring Indianapolis, the most historic racetrack on the planet. Still predominantly public road, and with all that implies. On Wednesday, trucks were still grinding up and down the N138, what we know as the Mulsanne Straight, and for the permanent parts of the circuit, from the Porsche curves through to Terre Rouge, that has been unused since the Le Mans 24 bike race 3 weeks ago. Race records: Mike Conway with the fastest race lap for Toyota in LMP1. Nathaniel Berton, who's the pole switcher in LMP2, also has the fastest race lap in that category. And we saw qualifying records broken in LMP2 and in GTE AM.
What are they saying? What is this, an anthem for what country? Nah, I have no idea. Is this France? Is this a France anthem? Look at that robot. You saw that robot?
Right, a very emotional rendition of La Marseillaise with the tricolor on the grid.
Yeah, it didn't sound like French, but he had like a French bow tie, so I thought, you know.
The tricolor will be dropped in to be waved by our official starter,
Well,
who is the CEO
looks like I'll never know.
Carlos Tavares. He's already driven one of the Peugeot 908s around the circuit this morning. And above us, the Goodyear airship makes its return after over a decade away from European skies. And the Chicola will be dropped in. Our Grand Marshal this weekend, this year, is multiple race winner Emanuele Pirro. And the starting signal, the wave of the French national colours, will be given by Carlos Tavares. Peugeot Sport announcing their return to top flight sports car racing in the soon-to-be debuted hypercar category. Now there's a great view of modern and ancient. And by the way, just a little footnote in history. Do you know why Goodyear have an airship? It's not a blimp, it's an airship. Because in the early 1900s, Goodyear Rubber produced airships and balloons. And in fact, at one stage, and that continues to this day, they inaugurated a partnership with the Zeppelin aircraft.
What's the possibility of NASCAR modified?
Still build Zeppelin airships with Goodyear products, and that is why there is a blimp.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know yet.
35 years since a Goodyear airship flew over a European.
It's diverse enough to.
It's great to see.
I would say like.
Old enough to remember the last time.
I've seen it in the skies.
I would say it's
more recently than that.
greater than 50% for the release by the release date, which is 2021, June 2021. That's our planned release date. So by then, greater than 50%. That's all I can say.
Motor racing presence in endurance racing and touring car racing across Europe and across the world.
Yep, the commandos from the Armadillo.
And they will bow, and the helicopter will exit stage left as the tricolor will be brought to our honorary starter. But it is a very good view from up in the air, and it gives you an indication of just what isn't here, the fans, because all of that spectator banking, all the grandstands there, you wouldn't see 1 centimetre of SART dust, because it would be packed with humanity on any other Le Mans race day. Motorcycle, bikes, whatever.
Vehicle manager guide. Generate exchange vehicles.
As we know, because of the pandemic, things are very different. Very glad indeed to be even able to get the race underway. And hopefully all of the 250, 350,000 fans who would otherwise be here will be able to sit down and enjoy it, at least in some part on
I don't even know. I'm just
at
gonna put
home.
0.
I know an awful lot of people have gone a long way to recreate the Le Mans experience at home in their gardens.
Link.
So we're expecting
Link
to see lots of
player
pictures on social media.
Current career
That's
link
why you get the
career
distinctive noise
day
from helicopter
to
rotor tips. They are going
vehicles to
supersonic.
buy.
Great shot.
Yeah.
And this will be a proud moment with this young man.
Absolutely.
Oh,
right.
how do I
We
generate the
walked past
price?
them earlier on, taking the Chicolor
How do I generate the price? Oh fuck, I didn't even think about that.
a day-old baby less gently.
Well, I guess value. I gotta add a function
Proudly
that gets the value of
carrying the
everything.
Tricolor and bringing it to the front of the grid. This is a global event, but it is uniquely French in so many ways, Le Mans, and long may that continue. So Carlos Tavares, CEO of Group PSA, and also the man who has promised to bring Peugeot Sport back to proceedings. On the left, of course, of that group, as you look at them from the front, is the president of the FIA, who was hugely successful with Peugeot as a team boss, multiple Le Mans winner in the Group C days. Now we look through our grid. We start with the GTE AM class, the most numerous, in fact, with LMP2. There are 22 cars in each. And Team Project 1, you just saw the 56 car lying third in the field after qualifying, second place after qualifying and after Hyperpole, the number 77 car. Christian Reed, the team boss, will start that. But a newcomer, Lucic Racing, have not raced at Le Mans before. They earned it by winning European Le Mans Series honours, and they claimed pole position. Osvaldo Negri Jr. will start that Ferrari with its very historic-looking livery of just the plain red, white and blue stripes and a large number 61.
And a message, I guess, through this COVID-19 crisis that Os Negri Jr. holds high. The recovery recovered from a serious bout of COVID-19. Great to see him here. Carlos Tavares in front of the Peugeot 908, helmeting up.
Drivers helmeting up. You saw the
Steve Briggs there from BBM Sports.
The next car game on us, the tech demo was better than the final game.
Carlos Tavares, who has done a bit of racing himself.
What do you mean by that? I played a little bit of both. The tech demo when it was called Next Car Game, and then Wreckfest, right?
Possibly the most successful day he will have.
What was why was the tech demo better?
I can't imagine that was the most confidence-inspiring thing to do. But he had the opportunity to drive the car and to remind us that the Lion is a very potent beast when it comes fully laden. Now what we've also seen as well is the new H24 hydrogen-powered prototype, an entirely new car, moving on the development of this purely hydrogen-powered race car that the ACO are determined to try and bring to mainstream prototype racing. It's lighter, it's more efficient, and being hydrogen-powered, the fuel cell's only emission is pure drinkable water, which was drunk by our celebrities on the grid.
Oh, they drank exhaust water? Hold on. Okay, hold on. They're talking about a hydrogen car? Okay.
An entirely new car.
Hydrogen prototype.
Of this purely hydrogen-powered race car that the ACO are determined to try and bring to mainstream prototype racing. It's lighter, it's more efficient, and
surprising.
Hydrogen-powered. The fuel cell's only emission is pure drinkable water, which was drunk by
they drank water.
Been joined as partners in the program, Mission H24 by Richard Mille and automotive equipment manufacturer.
I don't know why it's so funny, but it's really funny to me.
Total and Misai Symbio as sponsors of the program. And this car, Graham Goodwin, very much more svelte and LMP looking than the previous test car.
Well, this is the previous one, actually. The other one only completed 2 days ago, so we will see that testing from next week. This is the car that we've seen at the Michelin Le Mans Cup races in the last year or so. Aiming for GT3 pace from that because of the weight of the car. They've taken 150 kilos out of the new car, and I think we're going to see that at more race meetings next year, coupled with Total's portable, transportable fuel station.
Well, as well as the GTE AM cars, we have GTE Pro cars, and as well as LMP2, we of course have LMP1 cars in the field. So 4 different classes, each of them vying with each other for the overall.
Menu enter, enable selectables, complete prevent. Okay, change cruise select, change cursor state. Alright, I added a. I have no idea what's gonna happen. So.
And there you can see the 2 Astons,
I really have no idea what's gonna happen. Okay, let's go to network. Oh fuck, it didn't generate. It used to generate those lists. Where do I do that? Generate. Generate physical.
Possessor of the oddest tire licking fetish and wildest
it's not here? What?
Car racing. If you don't know anything about Nicky Team, do check out his social media. Plain bonkers, I think, is the perfect description. That car starts 3rd in GTE Pro, as we see and hear the H24. Very interesting sound, of course. It's the hydrogen fuel cell that powers the electric motors. 2nd in GTE Pro, of course, a Ferrari. James Collado will start that number 51 car. 51 car of the former world champions, he with Alessandro Pierguidi and Daniel Serra, the Brazilian, added to that team, who most recently raced here for Aston Martin. And the pole sitter in the GTE
I feel like this would do it, but I don't see it.
Porsche GT number 91. And this car will be started by Jimmy Bruni.
Right, here it is, generate physical UI.
Will be the other drivers. All these cars, like everybody else in the field, with a 3
career events, inventory, profile, arcade
so
options.
The fastest 6 cars after qualifying
main career events.
And a little earlier today, Fritz Metzinger there on the
Network.
right-hand side,
Okay.
presenting the Le Mans winner 919 to the Le Mans 24-hour museum.
The 2016 winner, the most dramatic finish in Le Mans history, of course, with the awful luck for Kaz Nakajima.
Yes, emotional moments there. And of course, Porsche also won the race that it, for a long while, looked like no LMP1 car would finish, and it was nearly an LMP2 victory. Speaking of which, here is the Jota Sport car that lines up 7th in LMP2. Antonio Felix da Costa, the reigning Formula E
So this would be
champion,
what,
with
network?
Roberto Gonzalez and Ant
And then we
Davidson,
would
the starting
have
driver.
2014 WC champion, drivers' champion, of course. One of a number of world champions on this grid.
And that
News.
car running on Goodyear tyres. There are 5 Goodyear shod cars in the LMP2 category.
News.
So it's a Goodyear versus Michelin battle. Ahead of them, their teammates, although
mail,
running under
I
a
guess.
different name. Jackie Chan DC Racing, run by the same squad. And it will be Will Stevens who starts that car for his teammates.
Or just inbox, I guess would
You
be
can
better.
see
Inbox.
teams clearing the grid, tyre trolleys go away, they come to the grid on a set of tyres that have already been used, and then the tyres that they'll start the race. Will Owen and Joop van Uitert added to the United Autosports team, with Alex Brundle starting the car. Dad Martin, of course, a former winner of this race.
And that trio already race winners this year in the European Le Mans Series. The first round at Paul Ricard.
Yeah, it's number 23 in the
No, 32.
European Le Mans, 32 in European Le Mans Series. I'm getting my 23s and my 32s mixed up already. Their sister car is the more successful of the two. We'll see that a little further up. 33, high-class racing. Mark Patterson, Anders Fjordbach, and young Japanese Kenta Yamashita, the reigning Super GT champion. And Toyota
That didn't do
prodigy,
anything.
and it was he that
Interesting.
set the quick laps in hyperpole.
What? Weird.
Mark
Alright,
Patterson,
let's take a look.
not the oldest entrant in this year's
Exchange,
race, despite the
yeah.
fact that he is
Foreign exchange,
68 years
exchange.
old.
Yeah, that would have been the
68
case.
years young.
We'll come to that during the race.
Yes. Fritz van Aert with Nick de Vries and Gerda van der Gaard. De Vries setting the hyperpole time, nearly claimed LMP2 pole, but binned the car at the Porsche curves on what would have been a super quick lap. But it is Gerda van der Gaard who starts that Orica. They are third in the LMP2 field. Second place, and nominally an Aurus, which is a Russian luxury brand. And this is the G-Drive racing car, which will be started by Jean-Eric Verne, two-time Formula E champion. That car second in hyperpole, but the quick laps done by Paul di Resta to claim pole for United Autosports, with Phil Hansen and starting driver Felipe Albuquerque. So Felipe will start in the 22 car. They've recently won their third straight race at Spa, and they have won 2 on the bounce in European Le Mans Series racing as well. Tom Dillman starts for Bruno.
I feel like this should be
and Ollie Webb
default.
in the car that lines up 5th on the grid, the Bicoles entry. One of our 3
If it doesn't match any of these.
LMP1 cars. Ahead of them on the second row of the grid, Nate Berton, the starter in the rebellion that he shares with the drivers of the number 3 car, Louis Delatraz and Roman Dumas. Starting in 3rd place on the grid then, Sebastian Buemi goes away with Kaz Nakajima, who set the laps in Superpole, and Brendan Hartley joining the 2 that have won Le Mans for the last 2 straight years in car number 8. And the front row of the grid splitting the Toyotas, courtesy of laps from Gustavo Menezes. He will drive with Norman Nato and starting driver Bruno Senna. But sitting on pole position are championship leaders in the World Endurance Championship. Kamui Kobayashi did the qualifying. He is joined by Jose Maria Lopez, and starting the race, Mike Conway.
Mesdames et messieurs, pilotes, démarrez vos moteurs. Bravo, merci Carlos Tavares. C'est ainsi après.
The distinctive vocal stylings there of Bruno Vendesti, the speaker here at Le Mans. Everybody who has been to Le Mans in the last 20 years will recognise his voice from the PA, and Carlos Tavares giving the start your engines command to the ladies and gentlemen on the grid. I'm afraid my modern aircraft recognition is not good enough to tell what those are. Are they super étendards?
No, that's a much older plane. They're Rafales from the French Navy, with the arrestor hooks at the back of those jets. Fabulous looking third generation jet fighters.
I stopped making airfix kits of modern jets in about the 1970s, so I'm afraid that's a bit beyond my ken. However, we are getting ready, as ever, nervously, to start the build-up to the 24 hours of Le Mans. The cars will be waved away by the green flag. We'll complete one formation lap, and then we will be go. Both of the races today, the Porsche Carrera Cup race and the Road to Le Mans race, were started behind the safety car because the track was wet. As you can see, there are the remnants of that on the tarmac. But Alan McNish, it was definitely slick weather 2 hours ago in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and there's no question that anybody would think of anything else on their cars for the start of the 24 hours.
No, the start of the 24 hours is going to be slick. What happens later on? Well, that's still up for debate. Later on, there's thunderstorms supposed to be rumbling through. Right now, though, the thunder's going to be on the circuit. However, one
Where
thing
the
they
fuck
do
is
have to
that?
be a little bit careful of is the curbs, especially
selection,
on these first few laps. The curbs are still going to have a little bit of residue of that dampness from overnight rain. And also if they're offline,
selection change. Okay, there it is.
In the first breakings into Dunlop, into the chicanes on the first lap. Then after that, once they've been through it once, they know what they're expecting, then they'll be off to go.
So our GTE Amfield, towards the tail of this 59 car lineup, runs away, but only 50, well, I thought only 57 were going to be on the grid, because we were told that the IDEX cars, 28 and 17, which both failed to qualify after accidents, were due to start from the pit lane 1 lap behind.
Yeah, that is correct. They had accidents in free practice,
That's
and one of them actually had to change
vehicle
chassis
manager.
so they qualify. They were then allowed to start the race because the
all
performance of the car and the
vehicles
drivers were correct,
index
and so they
selected.
were due to start from pit lane, but after the whole grid had done 1 lap. Seems pretty severe here in Le Mans because of the length of the lap. However, it is a standard regulation through the whole WEC, irrelevant of the length of the race.
Got to say, it seems pretty severe anyway, because nobody crashes a car to gain a competitive advantage. But that's the rule, so it may well be that they roll round to get heat into the tyres and the brakes and then pull into the pit lane. It may be that there has been a late change that we are not aware of. Alan's waving.
I can't see anything in any of the decisions, but anyway, they're starting the race, and hopefully they'll be in with a fight, because IDEX Sports are a very strong team.
This is the moment to say our best wishes to the driver that won't make the start. Then that's Dwight Merriman, who was hurt in that accident for the 17, replaced very late on by Patrick Pilet. Dwight, if you're listening, if you're watching, get well soon.
Yeah, and he will not start the oddest Le Mans ever, but hopefully he'll get a chance to come back and start a more normal one, and everybody will have a chance to come and watch him. Let's see what 2021 brings. But for now, 59 cars doing what they do, rolling around the Circuit de la Sarthe, trying to build heat in the tyres and in the brakes. Car number 50, one of 2 all-female crew cars. That's the Richard Mille Racing Team entry. There's another all-female crew in the GTE AM class. As we scroll through our bridge, you're looking now at the front runners in the GTE Pro category. Green backing to their numbers, and green indicator lights down the side for the top 3 in the class. Blue for LMP2, red for LMP1, and orange for GTE AM, with Lusic Racing, the newcomers, on pole position ahead of the Porsches of Dempsey Proton and Team Project One. Then an all Aston Martin row 20. Looking a little further back, you'll see cars from Iron Lynx, again a new team to Le Mans. They've got a 3-car entry, and one of them, the Iron Dames, is the second all-female crew in the field. Greatest number of women ever to contest a single Le Mans has been 10. That was back in 1935. And there are half a dozen in the field this weekend. And as ever, like everybody else, once they've got the helmet on, they are just racers. So that's the number 85 car, Manuela Gosner starts that. 53rd on the grid. Big crash for Red River Sport, put their race in question, but they, like the 2 IDEX Sport cars, are both ready to go, or all ready to go. And Patrick Pilet, the late addition to IDEX Sports number 17 car from Force Majeure. He will make his first ever sports car racing start not in a GT Porsche. He has never raced an LMP car before, so for him it's going to be so familiar and so very, very different.
You wonder why they're going so slowly. It's actually timed to the second at various points around the circuit. So the first chicane, second chicane, Mulsanne, into Arnage, into Porsche, and then finally into the fourth chicane. So that when the cars do return to the pit area, the start is exactly at 2:30 local time here. And so right now they're working on second by second. Emanuele Pirro driving that. He's the Grand Marshal of this year's race. Knows the circuit pretty well. He's won it 5 times. Been here, I think, since, well, he first came here in the 80s. And so from
with Lancia, yeah,
in Lancia. So from that perspective, it's a much more relaxed 24 hours for him this year.
Quick word for the marshals, a group of people that this couldn't happen without. And it's great to see them in, of course, their traditional numbers. Thank you for what you do for this sport. Without you, it would not be possible.
It's about 3,000 marshals to put this event on, because obviously they can't stay up 24 hours and do the same job. So from that perspective, it's a busy, busy time. But that's the flag that everybody's looking at. That's the one that releases the adrenaline, releases the horsepower, releases all that energy that's going to be blasting around until tomorrow afternoon.
At the moment, everybody running in sort of crocodile formation, but they will line up 2 by 2. Just saw Zach Brown, the joint owner of United Autosports and the United Garage. And as they come into the Porsche curves, they will start to form up in 2 by 2 formation. Richard Leeds there, just trying to remain calm. I think it's probably tougher to be watching the start of the race from the outside than it is to be doing the driving from the inside.
About to say that, I can feel the tension in the booth here, the tension in the garages here. It gets released a little, oddly enough, when the cars are only doing 200 miles an hour rather than 70.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that the race starts with all of our cars. Our Porsche Carrera Cup race, unfortunately, we lost 1 car before they even got to the start line, but that was in very, very much different conditions. We do expect rain during the race.
Oh, okay, they're slightly different. The only thing that's not is the livery.
Showers were anything to go by. Sebastian Buemi, busy dialing a pizza. Is it 2 for Tuesday? Who knows? But just chatting on the radio and adjusting.
Okay, so if you notice, these are slightly different.
All eyes are on the screen, aren't there?
Acceleration of these are higher.
Put them between the Toyotas. Car number 1. And one thing we know about Bruno Senna when he starts a race at the front is he likes to get in front of the Toyotas. Watch out for fireworks up to the Dunlop curve.
Okay, the only thing that doesn't carry over is the livery.
Their hearts are pumping like mad. You're tense on the steering wheel, you're looking at the data screens, but you're also getting a lot of information from your engineer, exactly where all your temperatures are, because it is critical. It's a very slow lap. These cars are designed to be doing an average of 165 miles per hour, 240 kilometers per hour average. And so this is a little bit like trying to ride your bicycle around your living room. But then once they get the preparation for the hybrid systems to be fully charged, for the normally aspirated or the turbocharged, but the non-hybrids, then it's about just getting those tire and especially brake temperatures spot on.
Is your leg jiggling a la Christian Horner now? If it's not, get somebody to check your pulse. Come on! It's the start of Le Mans 24 hours. We're seconds away.
Last second thing for me, the IDEX Sport cars will come into pit lane and will hold for that first racing lap.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to come back from, but they will be looking for... Look at that. Look at that. There are grown men who are jiggling with nervous anticipation and not just...
Alright, let me do that again.
We are getting ready to start the 88th running of the Le Mans 24 Hours. 2020 has been a very, very strange year. Safety car driver.
Okay, it's doing this because it's trying to find the livery for this. Well, this is not.
As we head to 2:30 Central European summertime. Oh boy, here we go. exit the chicane, and as they come across the line, the Le Mans 24 Hours for 2020 is underway as Peugeot CEO Carlos Tavares waves the flag, and Bruno Senna is up the inside and into the lead, trying to get around the lead Toyota of Mike Conway, who takes the inside line and slides through the chicane. Block pass on Senna, but he's got the lead, and on the boost, here comes Sebastian Buemi. Down into the Forest S's. He makes it a Toyota 1. He doesn't. Bruno Senna holds the inside line. Alan is, as we expect.
This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they need to be pitching in quite early on. They've got advantages at certain points of the circuit. The boost off the line and the boost out of the Dunlop chicane due to the hybrid, and also in this part of the straight is definitely with Toyota. However, later on in the straights, that's when the Rebellion will come back and maybe have a go going into the first chicane.
Massive field of 22 LMP2 cars. Look at them thunder down the straight. Second of the G-Drive cars, with a battle on his hands from the Graf Racing car of James Allen. Ollie Jarvis defending, and there is the leader, red, white and blue, number 22, Felipe Albuquerque, ahead of Racing Team Netherlands, Guido van der Garde.
Guido van der Garde, if we just think back of all of the races we've seen in WEC so far, then he has been absolutely fantastic on the lap one. He doesn't want to be there in second as we see the IDEC cars both into the pits, tyres off, putting new heated tyres on because it's 3 minutes they'll have to sit in the pits, and they'll cool down in temperature and pressure, so they'll put another set back on, and then when these cars go round, and it's when the last one goes past the pits, then they'll be sent on their way.
GTE Pro lead battle. They held back a little bit from the prototypes, and here comes the Ferrari. This is James Collado, last year's world champion, having a look down the inside and taking the lead from Jimmy Bruni. Gets past the 91 Porsche. The Ferrari has the early lead. Yes, little ripple from the boys. This is just the very first foray of a long, long battle. Number 8 Toyota, Sebastian Buemi with the boost. Comes down the inside, moves up this time to second place. But as he runs out of boost, watch the Rebellion come back. The Rebellion will continue to accelerate, but the Toyota's internal combustion engine will merely hold its pace, and Bruno's got the line around the outside.
The Toyota is a little bit quicker at the end of the straights at the moment. I wonder if he's trying to inhibit, you can inhibit the recuperation so that you can actually keep a little bit more momentum, use more energy at different points on the circuit to try and get into second place, because what he does need to do is he needs to get past to control Bruno Senna. At the moment, Bruno Senna is controlling that Toyota of Sebastian Buemi.
And it's funny, you know, everybody knows it's a 24-hour race. It always is the final lap of the Formula Ford final, isn't it, at the beginning of this race? Right back to the 70s and 80s, battling for position on every single lap is what these drivers are here for.
Tattoo Blue, hey, how's it going?
That there's two battles here. There's a battle for LMP1 overall, and there's the battle for the World Championship. And that battle for the World Championship is between the two Toyotas, 7 and 8. So whoever finishes the one ahead here because of the double points nature of this race has got a big advantage at the end of the season.
And it's currently number 7 that leads. There's Hugues de Schoenack. So nearly one Le Mans with Peugeot, so nearly one Le Mans with Toyota. Has he got a chance with the Rebellion team? Of course, he did win Le Mans back in 1991 with Mazda.
Still did not apply the thing.
What the program as well.
Yeah.
What?
Outright win for Mazda, and almost on that car, on that win's 50th anniversary rather, 25th anniversary, he almost won again with Toyota.
Okay.
Well, car in the pit lane, and was that the car of one
Index out of range.
No, there's two in the pit lanes IDEC at the moment.
So Cinetic
Why?
who went in.
They did.
God damn it, man.
Cars pitted. Andre Legrau pits at the end of the first racing lap. This is a car that was not in the warm-up session this morning.
It was in bits in the warm-up session this morning. He is in the pit lane. What a disaster for the reigning champions in LMP2. Is this a penalty?
There are penalties to be added at the start of this race. At the first pit stop of this race, they would not be doing that.
No,
they'd be added to it. It's not that.
Okay, so the field has gone by, and a lap down out go the IDEC Sport cars. 48 hours ago, even starting the race, IDEC had a battle on their hands to even think about that. Toyota's first and third, the number 1 Rebellion in between them. And Bruno Senna has really distanced himself from the number 8 Toyota of Sebastian Buemi. This is very worrying
in the garage.
Philippe Signot and his team. Hugely experienced, but the engine cover is off. Well, better in the first few minutes than the last few, but even so.
Team will be in the top class next year at Le Mans with, well, one of the Rebellions renamed and rebranded as an Alpine for 2021, but this is a horrible, horrible start. So let's not forget the defending double winners of this race.
And also Alpine and this team have also said that they're going to step up in the future as well to LMDH, and so in LMP1, sorry, and so that's going to be something that will be very difficult for them to come back from.
Battle for second in LMP2, the yellow and black car racing team Netherlands. That is Geert Vandergaard under pressure from Alex Brundle. Brundle in the 32 United Autosports car. Behind him we ride with Jean-Eric Verne in the G-Drive car number 26. This is fourth in LMP2. Will Stevens behind him, the black car with the yellow stroke nose. That's a Goodyear shot car. That is the top Goodyear shot car in the field at the moment. And Vandergaard really under pressure from Alex Brundle.
Tell you what, those United cars were very, very quick. Paul di Resta stuck it on pole, but delivered a pole lap. It wasn't just a pole lap, it was a real one. And Alex Brundle's been very quick. Both the United cars are extremely strong around here this year.
They've got really strong driver lineups who know and trust each other. Here we go in the AM class. JMW Ferrari down the middle. And that is...
oh boy!
The older father of a famous son, Michele Beretta, right behind in the Proton competition car, and they've gone by Christian Reed in the Dempsey Proton car with the blue highlights. Jan Magnussen returning to Le Mans for the first time in a number of years, the first time ever, I think, in a Ferrari.
And you saw at the back of the shot there, the two IDEC cars running astern, but already up onto the back of the GT field. However, one complete lap down.
Pit entry of car 36, the Signatech Alpine, is under investigation as well, so it goes from one bit of woe to potentially two for the 36 squad.
If you're in after 2 laps, whether you came in too quick or not is the very least of your worries, isn't it? Looking here in our GT Pro battle, James Collado leads in the Ferrari, then the 2 Aston Martins, the bright yellow cars, and then the 2 red cars, well, red and white for Jimmy Bruni in the 91 car, the pole sitter. Up the inside, the WeatherTech Porsche, that is Tony Vilander going by Davide Rigon. So Tony Vilander in that WeatherTech entry that has come in from the States, one of 2 cars that are US entered in the class. Risi Competizione's car just at the back of that group, being driven by local boy Sebastian Bourdais. That is the other one that's not a regular WC entry.
And for much of the Hyperpole competition, the WeatherTech car was actually knocking one of the factory cars out of Hyperpole. That was just sorted in the last few moments of Hyperpole to favour the 51 and the 71.
So you can see the green lights down the side of the Aston Martin in that last shot. The lead Ferrari will have 1 green light. The second car, 2 green lights on the Aston, 3 green lights on the Aston. That's first, second and third in class. And again, the green denotes GTE Pro. So the aerial
That's what I was missing.
Choice. We've either got the heli, which this is. I believe there is a camera on the Goodyear airship as well. Looking in the AMR garage, their fuel man wearing the red suit and the rest wearing the dark colours.
Both EDEC Sport cars, by the way, up with the 8th position car in GTM, so they've passed 14 of the GTM cars on this first lap, but are, of course, still a full lap down.
Well, the good news for them is that after a lap of racing, you can see already how there are little gaps. So when you're leapfrogging past, there will be gaps rather than solid queues of traffic. Jean-Eric Verne, and behind him Will Stevens with the yellow nose, closing in a little bit on Alex Brundle, and the black and yellow car of Geert Vandergaard, and they are now 3 seconds behind the leader, Felipe Albuquerque, who has picked up his skirts and is flying away in the front of LMP2. There he is in the distance.
Yeah, he's able to actually keep his eyes on the Bicolis car ahead of him, but at the same time, Vandergaard is looking more in his mirrors to make sure he's not getting attacked from Alex Brundle, which I can guarantee you is coming very, very soon. And so really, Guido's in a sort of rearward guard action, which is normally not the case. Normally, if there's anyone charging forward, it's going to be him.
Well, in a regular WC race, neither of these United Autosports cars would exist, so Geert would be leading, and in fact, G-Drive wouldn't be there either. He'd be leading from Jackie Chan DC Racing, but of course, course, this isn't a normal race.
Yeah, but we also have to say that Jackie Chan DC racing car, 37, sitting there on those Goodyear tyres. It's sitting in there quite easily. He's actually able to follow in the slipstream without any problems, no stress. And I think that car's actually the best of the Goodyear tyres, obviously by position, but it was looking pretty good in all the practice sessions as well.
Yeah, that and the 38 car, the two cars run by Sam Hignett's Jota Sport team. And between them, the high-class racing number 33 car of Kenti Yamashita. Great shot from that wall cam in the Porsche curves. There's Nick de Vries watching from the Racing Team Netherlands pit. And Frits van Aert, the boss of Jumbo Supermarkets, who put together and sponsors the Racing Team Netherlands team, also sponsors one of the lead crews in the Tour de France, which ends the Champs-Élysées on Sunday. He could conceivably end up winning the world's greatest motor race and the world's greatest bicycle race on the same day.
Might be a poster or two.
Why is it still looking for this? What the fuck?
Yeah. Discounts on all LMP2 cars and bicycles.
Engine cover, apparently Alex has just set down in the pit lane. The engine cover's going back on that Signatech Alpine that pitted at the end of lap 1. However, right now they are down a few laps already. Yep. But good news, engines cover's going back on.
Well, you know, now it's just desperately trying to get the car to the end of the race, isn't it? And just see what happens. If you can have misfortune, so can everybody else. If there was a half-dozen car field, that might be one thing, but with 22 in LMP2, really, you need a lot of luck on your side. Replay of the start, Bruno Senna trying to go high, wide and handsome around the outside. Copyright Brian Jones, but being cut off by Mike Conway, who took the lead for Toyota. Sebastian Buemi boosting down the inside into the Forest S's, but where it went left, Bruno Senna had the inside line, and he has kept his nose in front since. Norman Nato and Hugues de Schonack watching from the Rebellion garage. And into the pit lane at the end of the formation lap came the two IDEC Sport cars. Look at this. In the middle of LMP2 action, that's Andre Negrão in the Seniortech Elf car. Now, did he have contact there, or was he already starting to slow, Alan?
He had a little bit of contact up into Dunlop chicane, I noticed as well. So he had a couple of little moments, and then it was a very, very late pit entry there, just before the cone, so he should be okay. But that's probably what the investigation is going to be about, is that entry into the pit lane there, not speeding.
Did he have red warning lights on the dash? Couldn't quite see on the steering wheel, but it looked like maybe he had a low tyre pressure alert.
Rear cover was off. Was it? Did he get a clunk on the rear wheel? Was it a drive shaft? Was it something like that?
It could have been changed in that time. They lost a couple of laps at 7 or 8 minutes. Fastest race lap, 3 minute 19.63 for Mike Conway on lap 3, the last lap. And here comes Alex Brundle. He's going the long way round the outside. Gerda van der Gaard keeping it rock steady on the line, but Brundle uses the run around the outside. Side draft down to Indianapolis, up to second place. That's why these cars are two-seaters, because you've got to fit the cojones in somehow.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I wish I could describe Alan Mitnich's facial expression right now.
It's like somebody's giving him a wedgie. Meanwhile, here we go. TF Sport Aston Martin, the red car, behind the Mentos Porsche Team Project One. And this is for second place in GTE Pro. The leader for AMR is Ross Gunn in the yellow car with the factory colours on board with the TF Sport Aston. This is how Charlie Eastwood having a little look around the outside. There's the 98 car of Ross Gunn. And there is Matteo Cairoli, Porsche Junior driver. Now, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the rear-view camera. Just to the right of that, that's the race safety system that all the cars have fitted, so Eduardo Freitas can talk to the teams. And here are the two Porsche GT cars, Jimmy Bruni and Kevin Estra, slumping a little down the order. Only one car behind them now. That's Sebastian Bourdais in the Risi Competizione Ferrari. So the Porsche's early stint pace is not good. We've seen this so many times, Alan, in World Endurance Championship. The engineers talking to the drivers about tyre management, about fuel saving, keep it going, you're doing a great job, as they sag down the order early on and then start to come back.
What we have seen historically in this GTE Pro battle is that it's tooth and nail all the way to the end. Ferrari tends to have a bit of a struggle in practice, not necessarily the best qualifying, starts to get better as the race goes on. Porsche manages it very well over the course of the race, especially when you get into the tyre life, as you say. Aston Martin seem to be very good in pretty much every condition, whether it's dry, damp or very, very heavy rain.
Look at the run he got on the Porsche out of the chicane. Holy cow, he came past him doing about 15 miles an hour more. Here's your leader, James Calado. And that was just a little sequence of the pole position of Porsche, let's remind you, being passed by all and sundry. This is the battle for sixth. Well, let's get down to the pit lane and hear for the first time from our reporter Alex Legui. Alex, what do you know?
Unfortunately, engine temperature got very, very high. They're concerned that the engine has been very badly damaged, so they're just going to run it and see how they get on.
Wow, that is tough. Thank you, Al. And she will be joined in the pit lane by Hayley Edmonds. So, two new voices for our regular World Endurance Championship followers. ELMS fans will know Hayley.
Yeah, if you basically, with the engine temperatures, if you get to the point where it goes past its optimum, shall we say, then you can damage them. However, at the same time, I know from personal experience, we've ran for 20 hours when we've been above the limit threshold at one point, and it hangs on. So this is one where, as Alex said there, going out just to see, because there's a point where it defies what it's been tested to up till that point.
Well, that's what cars do, isn't it? You know, I can remember in the Group C era, a team filling the water tank of a car in the closing stages with red wine because they had run out of water. Now, when the gasket on that let go, what a strange smell that would have been, but it made it through to the finish. You know, you'll do anything, you'll do absolutely anything to finish this race, particularly once you get past lunchtime on Sunday. Right, let's look at the lead battle then. James Calado, Alex Lynn. Ferrari leads, Aston Martin is coming.
Another early pit stop, and the number 70 MR racing car is in pit lane.
That's bad news for Kai Cozzolino, and that's the car guys liveried car, the bright yellow Ferrari. That's a long way down from Senior Tech, so we'll make Alex run, I think, and see if we can get a report on that. Alex reports to be fast walking. Well, at least it's not 40 degrees in the pit lane like it has been for the last couple of days. Here comes the Aston in the slipstream. He's got the run going, and he takes the inside line away in the Ferrari. James Calado, come on Sunbeam, you're going to have to try harder than that.
Yeah, the Aston's got a very good run off the corners. It's extremely good to hooking up in the mid-corner. You see he was on a tighter line coming out and still able to get into the slipstream. I would say chassis-wise, the Aston's looking better, as much as it looks like it's pure power coming down the straight, but the chassis, it's coming off the corner very, very well.
Well, think 24 hours ago, a year ago, well, 15, 16 months ago, last year Aston Martin had a massive change to the BOP after qualifying, and they ended up not being able to fight with anybody but themselves. Much better now that they are able to battle everybody. Look at the Porsches behind, 92 with the black nose, up the inside of 91, and the Aston Martin has the lead in Pro Class. So Alex Lynn gets ahead of James Calado. Here's 61, the Lusic Racing Ferrari, and a change for the lead in GTEM. Through goes, oh no, it's a long way back. That's the Hub Auto car ahead of the 61 car. Osvaldo Negri Jr. in the pole-sitting 61 car, now down to 9th in class. And Jeroen Blekemolen in that purple Wins livery Porsche, the Team Project 1 car, is next up.
It was Ross Gunn that's leading in GTM in the other Aston Martin, so it's Aston Martin leading in both categories. But the two Porsches, I think, have switched here because Estra has been quicker than Bruni on the last couple of laps. Okay, that's not exactly fantastic teamwork. I thought he had moved aside, but he was moved aside as opposed to he moved aside.
There is no push to pass button, but there is also push to pass available. This is a non-contact sport, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Aston, Ferrari, Aston. How long before we get a 1-2? A couple of minutes. Drive-through penalty for Senior Tech Alpine, yeah, whatever. If the engine's going to let go. In the words of Hugh Chamberlain, if it's going to blow up, could it do so before they close?
On the subject of engine issues, just had a quick text from Jan Kalmar, who ran the Jet Alliance Lotuses in GT Pro back in 2011. He says in one of those cars they used 38 litres of engine oil during the race.
Wow. And 48 litres of fuel. Radio message from Kevin Estra for Porsche. We're good in the corners, but just too slow on the straights. So they're going to have to work around that somehow. And as ever, just grind this out. There's your LMP2 third placed car. Or has the second place car, Alex Brundle. G-Drive, Jean-Eric Verne with the orange highlights has now moved up to third. Jackie Chan DC Racing to fourth, that's Will Stevens. 33, Kenty Yamashita under pressure for fifth place from James Allen, the Aussie in the Graf Racing car. Jota Sports, Anthony Davidson in eighth. So Gerda Vandergaard has somehow dropped down from second to seventh position. There he is in the Racing Team Netherlands car. And that is very much in the opposite direction of which that car normally heads. And a big crash for the 88, or is it the 99 Porsche? 61 Ferrari there as well.
That's been coming into the corner in braking. They've turned round the right-hand side. Toyota going through.
88 Tom Preining comes up the inside of the Lusic Ferrari that loses it, having gone offline to avoid the Toyota. And Preining may be out of the race through no fault of his own. That is a high speed off.
I think he's going to get away with that, you know. It was reasonable biff of one corner, but don't know, Alan.
When you look at from Preining, then he hit the rear, but the Ferrari got away with it, but he'll have to pit for new tyres. But the Ferrari actually lost it. He was offline, but there's a damp patch still in the middle of the circuit, and that's where he lost the rear.
And muck and dirt, and his mistake there was being distracted and running offline to allow the Toyota to get through. So Osvaldo Negri Jr., very experienced sports car racer, into the pit lane comes Racing Team Netherlands. Yellow flags out of the Dunlop chicane, Marshall's post 3. And Porsche Junior driver, or Porsche factory driver, Thomas Preining. Here comes the Toyota. I think was the Ferrari already on the curbs and offline?
He was on the curbs. He was on the curbs, came back onto it, was coming back to the racing line.
There was a damp bit in the middle of the circuit when he came back on, and he was laterally loaded left rear just before this, and then he's just spun on that.
Of course, coming off the curbs, the tyres will be wet as well.
No, it's to be honest, it's hitting the damp patch in the middle of the circuit this time, where he was loaded and starting to brake.
And watch Tom Preining jinx to avoid, and then he's just trying to save it from the barriers. High-speed lose for Osvaldo Negri Jr. And double yellows out at the Dunlop chicane as they will try and get Thomas Preining turned around on terra firma and allow him to head back to the pit lane. Cobb Ledegaard, Porsche exponent, and Fabrizio Piavanetti in that car. So back to our GT Pro battle, Ferrari on Ferrari, but this time it is WeatherTech Ferrari versus the 71 car of Davide Rigon. Tony Villander was ahead. Davide Rigon has got back to him. And look at the way that they've closed up on the lead trio. The Aston Martins and the 51A, of course, the car were away from the 71 car. Davide Rigon is towing Tony Villander back up there. So Villander being dive-bombed down into Indianapolis. Alan, you always look at that and think you've got to be so brave to go into that fast right at Indianapolis offline like that. You've got to be really committed, haven't you?
Well, to be honest, you've got to be pretty committed coming in on the line, never mind off the line and going round outside. And you also have to have the person you're overtaking in complete compliance. And that's something that by this time all the drivers have actually done quite a lot of practice, so they know where they can go and they know also who they can trust. Right now at the start of the race, normally you've got a pretty good group of drivers that are starting, and so therefore you probably take more liberties than you would later on in the race. However, G-Drive car is now under extreme pressure from the Jackie Chan DC Racing.
Yeah, and they're in GTM traffic as well. That's one of the Iron Lynx Ferraris in front. So Jean-Eric Verne looking down the inside of the 66 car. And who is driving that at the moment? That is being driven by Jan Magnussen of this and many other parishes. And you can see the headlights flashing. That's the Iron Dames car in front behind the Red River Sport car. So in the Iron Dames car, Manuela Gostner giving Bon Grimes the hurry up. Come on, out of my way. And she's going to try and find a way through here, but she can't. And here comes the Graf Racing car, goes around the outside of Will Stevens, and the high-tech car did as well. Will Stevens losing 2 places there in traffic, and sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles.
In fact, Kenta Yamashita almost got by Verne in that little tussle.
He knows how to find an opening, doesn't he?
Oh, he's extremely good. one to watch.
Yeah. So the high-class car 33 moves up 2 spots and out of the pit lane and back on track. Not necessarily looking like it's leaning on the door handles is Geert van der Garde. I suspect that might be in again before too soon.
Yeah, Alex said on top back there down in the pits that there was a lot of shrugging of the shoulders and shaking of the head. It wasn't very clear what the problem was and going very slowly as the 66 is now returning to the circuit.
That's Jan Magnussen.
What do I make this?
Right puncher. No, he hasn't, but he's overshot the chicane under pressure. No, it's a 60 car, not 66.
That's here. That's pit in.
It is, isn't it? Oh, had a big looping spin.
It's Claudio Schiavone.
Wow.
Collects a cone.
He's had a few interesting race weekends at Spa, hasn't he, Claudio?
Hasn't he just?
Here's our race leader, Mike Conway for Toyota. 7 laps in the books here. In what time engineers are suggesting, because of the cooler temperatures compared to Midsummer weekend, if it doesn't rain excessively, this could be the fastest Le Mans ever run.
No, it's
because
different.
They'll be
What
using
the
the
fuck?
cool evening time
Why is it
tyres
different?
for longer than normal. We are 26 minutes into the race and we already have 3 LMP2 cars in the pits.
Yeah, it's fucking different.
Dragon Speed's 27 car and Duquesne's number 30, as well as the Iron Lynx car Claudio Schiavone, who came in reverse, I think.
I wonder whether that is simply because we've been talking about it all week, how cramped the pit lane seems to be this year. Just keep out of the way.
Slow car,
it's
that's
the 29.
number 29 car. You can see the white flag being waved for the marshals, by the marshals. Here comes the battle for second in GTE AM. TF Sport Aston trying to go back around the outside of the Mentos Porsche. No dice, yes. Great battle. Ross Gunn can barely stay away from Matteo and Charlie Eastwood. Ben Barker is 4th for the Gulf Racing Team Porsche. There's the 29 car going at what is fairly pedestrian pace.
And this is the LMP2 class has just been rock solid for the most part. This is 2 cars and 2 leading cars at that in trouble, with the 29 car with whatever the mystery is there. The 36 car suspected water leak, we're hearing.
It's starting to look like LMP 675 rather than LMP2 20 years on. Kai Cozzolino and the MR Racing Ferrari still in the pit lane. It's completed 1 lap. Thomas Preining still out on the circuit in that 88 Dempsey Proton Porsche. Andre Negrão 2 laps behind everybody in the Senior Tech car.
Into the pits for the number 3 Rebellion now.
This is about time for the first pit stops if you're to take it off sync in that respect.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's earlier than they can do in a full tank. However, remember, they've gone round to the grid. They've also gone round the formation lap and starting if you want to pull it off sync. Always the lead car gets the opportunity to do that extra lap. And this was lying second of the 2 Rebellions.
And you will do that rather than stack them in the pit lane, because the pit lane is very, very full with 59 cars. And an awful lot of the classes are jammed together. AF Corsa, for instance, have got 13 of 14 pits in a row for their Ferraris.
Yo, when the update release? I don't know.
Well, let's hear Alex tell us what you know from the MR Racing pit.
There will definitely be an update by November. So, definitely by November. I'm just trying to go for earlier for that. Maybe this month.
It's a busy pit lane as the field comes past on the outside as well.
2 more LMP2 cars, 3 more now, 4 and 5, 32. Alex Brundle makes his way down pit lane, as does number 33 with Kente Yamashita. The Jota Sport car is there too, Algar Pro and G-Drive Racing's car, and a problem, and over the curbs and into the pit lane for the 21 car. That is Juan Pablo Montoya, a very untidy entry to the pits.
Is this the final hour of the race? This is absolute mechanical carnage. This is ridiculous. We barely even got started. We've had less track time than we normally would. We've had less rebuild and repair time, though, than we normally would, Alan.
Well, just we have also to remember that the 21 when it comes in, the Dragon Speed car and also the 11 of Euro International have 20 seconds added to their first pit stops due to infringements under the slow zones and full course yellows in practice. So 21 there, you said, with Montoya coming in a bit straggly. He'll have to sit for an extra 20 seconds at the first stop.
And that's why the 32 car was being pulled back to get around it. Here's the battle for second in GTE AM as well. And these guys will do 14 laps on a tank, same as the GTE Pro cars. Here we go with the Aston. hoovering up the Porsche with that slipstream. Long way round the outside, over the brow, blue lights flashing. That's to denote a faster car coming up behind you. And the pass is made. Charlie Eastwood gets ahead of Matteo Cairoli. I think Matteo Cairoli was well aware that Eastwood was there. He has been since the beginning of the race.
As we're back on board with Toyota, looking at the Rebellion in second place up ahead. But just a note, remember we saw the Ferrari spinning down the pit lane coming in at Ford Chicane. It's now been investigated for speeding in the pit lane. So I presume, just with the whole thing of going on as the Rebellion comes into the pits and the Toyota behind, he's forgot to put the speed lane limiter on.
Now this is really interesting because the Rebellion cannot do as many laps then as Toyota can, because it's come in at the same time as number 8. Number 7 has continued.
Yeah, but just remember in this particular situation, it's the first into the race. The next one is the one where we'll take the real times from, because of how they ran the beginning at the start.
Right now in the dry, Rebellion can stay in touch with Toyota. The moment traction goes away, the four-wheel drive, when the hybrid boosts the front wheels of Toyota, that is their ace up their sleeve, and it will come into play.
Minor error there for the Toyota, slightly overshot, needed to be pushed back for the fuel man there.
You don't need to make too many of those mistakes. Number 8 is battling its sister car, number 7. Give away time in the pits, Alan, what happens?
Oh, you lose. But you see there the Michelin engineer going around just checking the valve caps were actually still seated and correctly on, because you just need to make sure those details, those tyres are going through an amazing amount of effort and energy. As now the Rebellion's released, and we haven't seen whether it was released in front of the Toyota or not as the Bicolis comes through and expected to the pits. But the Rebellion is actually still ahead as the Toyota now comes out. Here we'll still be seeing a Rebellion.
Yeah,
up ahead of him apparently.
Alex saying behind the Toyota, so that at the first sector will change to 2 red lights on the side of number 8 Toyota. So battle is on, and now the outlap. Every single time you stop, your in-lap and your outlap could win you or lose you the race. G-Drive come down the pit lane as the battle behind the purple car, that is Team Project One's your own Blake Molan, Matt Griffin in the Spirit of Race Ferrari. That 3-driver lineup in the Spirit of Race Ferrari, Graham Goodwin. I think they've been racing together since Job was a boy, haven't they?
It's great to see Duncan Cameron, another classic example of a gentleman driver fulfilling his passion and doing it with the help of 2 great blokes. Matt Griffin, a very quick man in a Ferrari or anything else. Aaron Scott.
Yeah, they've raced together as a trio for years and years.
6 or 7 years?
Yeah, definitely, I think. Of course, we're going to find it's only 2, but it feels like, you know, since Job was a boy.
Certainly Matt with Duncan. I know Aaron hasn't done every race they've done together. The remainder of the LMP2 field coming in. Before they started that pit cycle, by the way, one thing before we get into that is Alex Brundle was carving time out of Felipe Albuquerque. Got that lead to about 3 seconds from nearly 5.
Of course, Brundle stopped last lap round, so he's on his out lap. Albuquerque in the pits. Just quick check of the tyre temperatures at Chetila. And there's a great view of light. Look, on the right-hand side, those fields would normally be invisible. You wouldn't see an inch of green because those are the campsites. And here is the Richard Mille Racing Team, and a change of position. Through has gone Matt Griffin. He's got ahead of your own Blake Molan. So that is a change for 9th place in GTE, and behind them is Andrea Piccini in 11th in one of the 3 Iron Lynx cars. So in GTE, Ross Gunn leads from Charlie Eastwood. It's Aston Martin 1-2, and it's a 1-second gap. Matteo Cairoli 3rd in a Porsche, Ben Barker 4th in a Porsche, Julian Andler 5th in a Porsche, Giancarlo Fisichella the lead Ferrari, and yet to attract the attention of the stewards. So he's having a very clean race by his standards. United Autosports number 22 car, that is Felipe Albuquerque, being chased by the that's Alex Brundle rather, that was 32, being chased by the Graf Racing car of James Allen. And the number 7 car comes in, the race leader for Toyota. Mike Conway will stay in. Double stint, triple stint, probably at this time of day because it's not scorchingly hot. Maybe even a quad stint. We'll have to wait and see exactly how they slice this up while the drivers are fresh. You don't want to kill them early, but on the other hand, you do want to milk them early.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, it's only half-hour stints in that respect, so 4, that's 2 hours. It's
mamby-pamby stuff, not like real men's racing.
No.
Here is the Panis Racing car, number 31. Mathieu Vazivière with the M on the nose, just ahead of 37. Will Stevens stays in the Jackie Chan DC racing car. This is 9th and 10th. Behind the black and white car, Algarve Pro, Simon Trummer, the Swiss driver, 11th in LMP2. And behind him, Alexandre Coignet. In fact, it's not that. Behind them is the Cineotech Elf car of Andre Negrão, which is 3 laps down on the LMP2 field. So Negrão is up to speed. But oh boy, you know, they need the most Hail Mary of gifts to be anywhere in this race. And I'm afraid the chances of Cineotech Alpine Elf winning for a 3rd straight year are long gone. Let's hear from the Cineotech Alpine Elf team and find out what they know about their current situation.
Okay, Andre, so we are 2 laps behind, but now we beat you because they stopped. You can overtake if you can. Definitely, I overtake.
Okay, I think they all know now, 2 laps behind in the first 30 minutes. You just give it everything. If the car survives, this could well be for them like the 91 race was for the Mazda drivers, where they just ragged the car mercilessly and they were either going to win or break it. And in the end, the car somehow held on with 3 Grand Prix drivers giving it full beans, no pit speed limit starts every time they came in for fuel. God only knows how the car held up. The drivers barely did. Johnny Herbert had to be carried almost unconscious out of the car after the flag. Didn't ever get to step on the podium. Into Europol in their first ever LMP2 race. That's the yellow and green car. And this a battle towards the tail end of the LMP2 field because they're out of sync. Matavos Isakayan dives into the pit lane. He was in 3rd place on the road behind Felipe Albuquerque and Kenty Yamashita, but they are stopping very late and will drop back down the order. So up to 3rd now goes Alex Brundle, James Allen 4th with the red, white and blue, more white on the nose of the SO24 Haspai Graf. And then G drives, Jean-Eric Verne is in 5th position, but he's a couple of seconds back. So this is for 3rd, Brundle for United, with James Allen, the Aussie, all over the back of him. Kenty Yamashita not far away either. Yamashita of High Class Racing currently 2nd in LMP2. They go by the Dempsey Proton Porsche Christian Reed, the 77 car, that's 15th in the GTE AM class, and Yamashita stretches his legs. He got a nice clean run through Tete Rouge. And Brundle behind, defending from James Allen. Look at the helmet. You can see it because of Alex Brundle's white helmet. Looking in the mirror. Where is he? Where is he? And the answer is he's coming slingshotting down on your left-hand side. That is the outside line into the first chicane. And so Alex Brundle painting the car on the right-hand side of the straight.
I think it's a matter of time. It looks like Allen's much quicker in the mid-corners and in this heavy fuel, because remember they've had a pit stop, so they've put the fuel load back in, and on the second stint at the moment the United car isn't quite as agile as the one sitting directly behind. The Graf car is definitely a little bit better in the mid-corners.
Much quicker pit stop it was from the High Class Racing car. 1:04 I think it was in the pits, compared to 1:12 and 1:15 for Felipe Albuquerque, so saved 11 seconds in that pit stop, which is what's put the 33 between the 2 United cars.
He maybe had a little bit more fuel in the car from, if he was not going to make a complete lap, he would have maybe 80% of the lap of fuel, which is time. It's not that amount of time, that's for sure.
Wow. If they could do that even half a dozen pit stops, suddenly that gives them a massive on-track advantage. 22 from United is still the leader by 7 seconds ahead of this battle. Looking down at our GT Anfield, there's the 29 Racing Team Netherlands car coming back into the pit lane. News from Philippe Signot at Cineotech is that they had a water pressure problem. They know what the problem was, they have cured it, and so the car now is good to go, but 2 laps behind the whole of their rivals in that field in LMP2. WeatherTech versus Porsche GT. The US entered WeatherTech Ferrari ahead of the factory lead factory Porsche, which is only just in 6th place.
Hearing a 29 car sounds to me like an identical problem. It's engine temperature. So is that an identical issue for the two cars, 36 and 29, both in very early trouble with remarkably similar symptoms?
And of course they're the same chassis, they're the same tyres, they're the same engine and transmission, so they can well possibly be suffering from exactly the same issue. Well, Claudio Schiavone's day not getting much better. He entered the pits wrongly. Oh, 35 is off, and a long way off. And that is Eurasia Motorsports Nobuo Yamanaka, and that is up at the Dunlop chicane. Oh, whoa.
Okay.
And that will be a slow zone because they're going to need to get the tractor in there and tow him out.
One of our debutants this weekend.
Well,
Nobuo Yamanaka. That'll working him up.
He's had a massive dream to come and race at Le Mans. He's worked a long way to get close to it, and now he's finding himself in the gravel. Came steaming through the Dunlop curve up the hill and then changed his mind at whether or not he was going to lunge the car in front, I think, and cars don't like that.
Well, he was very lucky that car stayed on all four wheels, because we've seen some extremely dramatic incidents at exactly that same place. I can remember in years gone by, Alan Hideki Noda, multiple rolling a Lola at that very point.
Yeah, here we've got the lead in GTE Pro, and we saw earlier on, actually, sorry, this is third and fourth, the lead is up ahead, but it's exactly the same. It's Aston Martin with Ferrari directly behind, as you can see it there. So I would say the Astons and the Ferraris, even though Aston was able to get past both of them, it's not been able to pull away. The Ferrari's been able to sit there behind it quite easily at the moment. Porsches are the ones that are maybe playing a longer game, and they've dropped back a bit off this initial battle at the front.
Well, 40 minutes into our GTE Pro battle, you've got all the 8 cars in the field in one camera shot down the straight, because even right at the back there, the red Rizzi Competizione car was still in shot. In fact, we haven't, because Jimmy Bruni is out of shot. He's 4.2 seconds behind Sebastian Bourdais. So Jimmy Bruni, who started on the class pole with the fastest lap in Superpole, in Hyperpole, is now last in GTE Pro. They're in the slow zone. This is for recovery. So the car's on the pit lane speed limiter at 80 kilometers an hour. Meanwhile, everywhere else, you're free to race on. So this is instead of full course yellows or safety cars that bunch the field up and ruin races endlessly. A slow zone, local yellows, as they would say in IMSA racing. A very sensible adaptation of the regulations to allow for major recovery work without ruining the race. United Autosports lead in LMP2. Here's the battle with Kent Yamashita, 33, under pressure from Alex Brundle. Brundle's doing a lot of attacking. Felipe Albuquerque out front for United, doing a lot of running away. In a good way. James Allen in 4th place in the red, white and blue liveried, French race, red, white and blue. I know United is red, white and blue, but it's more blue. James Allen all over the back of them. They're coming up behind Matteo Cairoli and, beg your pardon, behind Jeroen Bleekemolen in the purple Porsche. They go by him. Bleekemolen being chased down by Andrea Piccini, a multiple winner in the European Le Mans Series for Ferrari. Sweeping into the Porsche curves, which we obviously still call this new part of the racetrack, because we're old proper dinosaurs. And they go by another of the Iron Lynx cars.
71 and 91 GT Pro cars now on pit lane, so that's the first of the GT Pro stoppers.
So that is the pole sitter Jimmy Bruni and the second placed Ferrari of Davide Rigon, who is rejoined this weekend by Sam Bird, who's the third member of that crew. Into the pit lane as well from the Amfield comes the green and white Ferrari of Duncan Cameron. It wasn't Duncan driving it, was it?
It was Matt, wasn't it?
It was, yes, yeah, Matt Griffin.
News from Toto, by the way, that they put more fuel in than was necessary to start that race. They wanted to short fuel the cars at the first stop. Strategic choice, all going to plan. It seems to have worked for them.
Well, I can imagine, as we guessed, that Bruno Senna would get either in between or in front of them at the start, and so that's what they were planning for.
So what they absolutely confirm is that they expect the fuel fill times for both the Rebellions and, for that matter, the Bicolis should be around the same as the rather lesser amount of fuel going in with a more restricted fill for the Toyotas.
37 in from the LMP2 field. This is Will Stevens in the Jackie Chan DC Racing entry. One of our 5 Goodyear shod cars. Away he goes, he stays in. Restricted tyre supply in most of our classes, so they can't change them all the time. There is the line where the slow zone begins. You must be at 80 k's by then. So this is the Richard Mille Racing Team, car number 50. And who started that? Manuela Gosner, did she?
And I think is that the 37 behind his Jackie Chan DC Racing car, I believe.
No, because he's only he was in the pit lane just now. So this is the 7 Toyota.
No, the middle car.
Yeah, no. But he was on the pit lane.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, we just saw him leaving the pit, so he can't be in the middle of that battle.
In which case, I'm incorrect. Just one point about to make about those fuel fills. So the far smaller tank for the Toyota, it's far more efficient on its fuel, uses something like 40% less fuel than the non-hybrid privateer LMP1 cars to do effectively the same or better lap times and the similar distance.
Well, at racing speed through the chicanes and at 80 kilometres now through the slow zone up to the first corner. Behind Manuela Gosner in the number 50 car was one, behind Tatiana Calderon rather, was one Pablo Montoya, and here comes James Allen going the long way around. Alex Brundle gets it done, moves up to third.
Going back to green in the start-finish straight in about 30 seconds, 15 seconds rather, so we'll be back to a full green track.
And so these guys will have lost nothing and gained nothing going through a slow zone because they're all doing the same speed. So if you like, each battle is frozen in aspic, and then when you get to the end of it, rejoined again. So it's now a green racetrack in all manners of ways, actually, because it's still not really rubbered up. There's been fewer cars running for less time than we would normally expect. And here's our battle for second place in LMP2. 33, Kenty Yamashita for high class, ahead of James Allen for Graf and Alex Brundle for United. G-Drive fourth, Jota fifth with Ant Davidson, and Duquesne's Tristan Gombody in sixth position.
News from the back end of the grid, if you like, that Thomas Preining shunt, the 88 car, has not moved from there. So that doesn't look good for the 88 Dempsey Proton Porsche. But back out into the race is the number 70 car, the MR Racing car, the Car Guy liveried car. That's after a lengthy pit stop. Spent 27 minutes on pit lane.
It was barely a pit stop, it was almost a pit start, wasn't it? It came in after the first lap of the race, so they've got a long way to go to finish this. Michael Christensen and Fred Makovici there watching in the Porsche garage. Little wrinkle in the Porsche pit stops. 91 pitted, Jimmy Bruni stayed in. It had fuel and left-hand side tyres, plus it served its 5-second penalty. So there was a lot going on in that Porsche stop. But interesting that they're trying to figure out where their performance deficit is.
Yeah, but also we have to remember they've only got 14 sets of tyres for 24 hours. So they do have to double stint and things. So at this moment in time, the circuit, as you said, is quite green and not rubbered in. So if they were struggling a little bit with the left-hand side grip because of it not actually surviving, then it may be starting to look at how they split their tyres. Here's the 98 into the pits now. Ross Gunn at the wheel. That was the car that was leading the AM category. Now Charlie Eastwood in another Aston Martin, but the red one that time has taken over the lead by continuing on for a stop. Matteo Caroli's behind.
Interesting there where you saw the fuel nozzle going in. The little screen at the top tells the fuel man how much fuel is going in. You say, well, you're just going to fill the tank up, right? Well, yes, now you are. But in the final stages of the race, you may want to short fuel it and you don't want to put too much in. So you've got to have an ometer to tell you how much is going in.
Radio.
Okay, and first bit confirm, first bit confirm. One to bad luck, guys, one to bad luck. Yep, okay. The range is still long. Keep the on.
Do you know what, that might as well be in French. It's saying, I never understand team radio. Is it my ears, or did you get what he was saying?
No.
No. Excellent.
I generally do understand team radio, but excellent. I've got to say that wasn't very clear.
No. However, number 8 is in, and Alistair Moffat from Toyota Gazoo Racing reports a puncture for Sebastian Buemi. You need a lot of things to win this race. You need a good driver lineup, you need a good car, you need good tyres, you need good engineering. and you need good luck. Now, if you get hit early on by bad luck, that might be good news for you. He came in without the tyre puncturing or doing any further damage. But again, time added up in the pit stop is not your friend, particularly when you're battling such a tough rival as a Toyota LMP1 hybrid, which is exactly what the number 8 crew are doing.
There's a tyre pressure monitoring system inside each tyre, and it's also got the thermal aspect of the tyre as well, so they can see very easily, driver and pit, when you have something happening. And here it is hyper-critical because of the average speeds are so high, never mind the top speeds, that you can pick that up earlier. So it's one of the points on a car that if it's not working, then you stop and make sure it is. Obviously in the race, that's a slightly different thing.
Drops him back to 4th behind both of the Rebellions, of course. Bruno Senna 41 seconds now behind the leading number 7 Toyota.
Euro International, car number 11, started in LMP2 by Adrien Tombe, has a 20-second penalty added to its next pit stop. Not sure what the infringement was.
That was, I think that was...
That was 11, that was from slow zones in practice.
Yes, so it's not, he clearly didn't take it in his first stop.
But it was very clear from the penalty that he received that he had to take it at the first stop, and it was...
I wonder if it's been doubled then.
It did not reduce to 80 kilometers per hour under the full safety car. Full course yellow, sorry.
I wonder if that... Was it originally
No,
a 20
it was originally a 20-second penalty.
Well, I'm surprised he hasn't been penalised for not serving it when told to. Juan Pablo Montoya returns to the racing in Europe at Le Mans with the Dragon Speed operation. This car had a couple of little issues in free practice and qualifying. But other than that, it seems to be running pretty smoothly. Dragon Speed, very experienced now with the LMP2 category, do a lot of racing in European Le Mans Series and in World Endurance. Sharing with Timothy Bouret, the French driver, 3rd man in the squad. Name escapes me at the moment, is Mimo Rojas, of course.
Indeed. Three-time winner of the Daytona 24 Hours, Mimo, and twice winner overall of the LMS.
Yeah, and they also had a 20 seconds added to their first stop as well, for a very similar reason. TF Sport, the leader of GTE AM, is into the pits. And Charlie Eastwood.
And all of the GTE Pro field. James Collado in 51, Nicky Thiem in 95. Coming in from 3rd, the WeatherTech Ferrari of Tony Vielander. Kevin Estre coming in from 4th in the 92 Porsche. And Charlie Eastwood was 29th overall, leading in the AM class, ahead of Matteo Cairoli. He's in, so is Ben Barker for Gulf, so too Julian Andlauer for Dempsey Proton. Alex Lynn stopped earlier. The Hub Auto Racing car of Marcos Gomez is in as well.
Well, you said about Porsche changing the left side tyres on Jimmy Bruni, full set there for the 51 of Collado.
And a driver change, Kevin Estre changing over to Michael Christensen in the 92 car.
But we've seen that many times before where other GTE Pro teams keep their drivers in for much longer, but Porsche rotate them pretty much every stint.
Yep.
Something personally never really quite worked out.
Right, it clearly works for them.
Yeah, we've seen Ferrari and some of the 6-hour races leave one driver in for remarkably long.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Spa, where...
and Fuji.
Where James Collado basically spent almost 5 hours in the pits, didn't he? Thinking, drumming his fingers, going...
To the point where we were asking,
is there out of the car?
Is there a problem? Apparently there was not.
No. Looking at a very historic, or two very historic liveries there. The first one, the blue car, FIA GT fans over many years will recognise the Felbermeyer Proton livery. And Horst Felbermeyer Sr. and Jr. used to race that car for many years in the early part of the century. Horst Sr. passed away, sadly, a little earlier this year. And his son returns to racing now, carrying those colours. Oh, and straight through the chicane. That was a long way missing his braking point. That was the Eurasia Motorsport car.
And he also had the same problem at the Ford chicane leading up to it. He was way, way offline coming through there. So, you know, looking at it, he needs to sort of take one step back. That's Adrien Tom. No, it's not Adrien Tombe at the wheel. It's the other car, isn't it?
Yeah, not an Eurasia car.
Yeah,
I'm back.
Yamanaka, Bobby Yamanaka. You just saw Horst Felbermeyer Jr. in the pit lane there in the garage, who now it looks very much like his dad did when I first met them. And the same with Gerald and Christian Reed. Christian Reed, who runs Proton competition now, he and his father Gerald used to race together. I said to him a couple of years ago, you know, his son's now karting. I said, come on, when are they coming race? He said, no.
Signatech Alpine car that you see there back onto the circuit, but the car you did see going through, or actually missing the chicane, the second chicane, was the black Euro International. That's the one that's being driven by Adrien Tombe.
Well, there you can see the Wins livery that has moved by, and that is Jeroen Bleekemolen in the Team Project 1 car, 57 car now up to 8th place, and the Proton competition car being driven by Michele Beretta, another long-standing GT ace, as is Bleekemolen. Andrea Piccini ahead of them, the 75 Ferrari. He's another really long-serving GT driver. And here's 29, still a long way behind the leaders, the Racing Team Netherlands car.
3-minute 29 pit stop. Remember, he came in very early on lap 6, then came back in on lap 8, very slow to make it round, and a 3.5 minute pit stop. That's 1 lap straight away there.
Well, there are the two IDEC Sport cars, the red and the blue prototype. Very different liveries, but both easy to spot. And both of them were easy to spot yesterday because they were in the garage in bits. Paul-Luc Chatin driving car number 28, and Patrick Pilet, who received a phone call at 1 in the morning on Friday, that's yesterday, saying, can you get to Le Mans and drive our car for us? The first time he has ever raced a prototype. In fact, this is the first race he's had in a car that is not a Porsche GT car since he was in World Series by Renault. And he is slowing, isn't he?
He was slow through Indianapolis, pulled to the right, and we thought it was because he was letting the Toyota pass, but clearly not. So 17 will be coming in, IDEC Sport will be into the pits.
Dab of Oppo, not normally what you see from a high downforce prototype car. Mind you, look at what's on the track.
I've got to say, well held.
Yeah. There's a nice bit of shingle there that's at the Dunlop chicane. Hypermotion pictures courtesy of our friend Yves. And look at this. Whoa. Oh. And the gap opened up for the Hub Auto Ferrari. Oh my goodness, Marcos Gomez.
That could have been 5 skittled out there, couldn't it?
He's now only got 8 lives left, because boy, he used one of his 9 there.
Brazilian stock car driver Marcos Gomez.
That's why he was backing it in.
And Pili is in the pits in the 17 LMP2.
Yeah. And that's a real shame, because that car was charging back up the order. The car was all in one piece, they were ready to go, had to start a lap behind everyone else, but now it's losing more ground, and that will be a race of attrition for them just to get it to the checkered flag.
It will. In fact, both those cars had just about cleared the the GTE AM field. The Sisters 28 car now has. His next target is the GTE Pro field to try to get back on the back end of the LMP2 field, which extends down to 24th place overall with the attrition we've seen so far. Now
then, he was going slowly and they've done a full tyre change. He had an alarm on in the cockpit, didn't he? And he was bringing the car back without allowing the tyre to delaminate and rip the back of the car apart. So,
which would explain also that rather squirrely moment we saw on the Hypervision.
Yeah, he probably had a full code brown there turning into the Dunlop chicane and brought it back.
He's
battle for 14th, the Ferrari of Francois Perroda, the AF Corsa car, one of the Baker's dozen of AF Corsa cars. He's ahead of Christian Reed. That's Nick Nielsen at the wheel of that car. Young Dane is becoming increasingly sought after in GT circles. And no sign there at the chicane of the Dempsey Proton car of Tom Preining, but it is still shown as stopped on circuit.
Yeah, there's
so it's behind the barriers there somewhere, isn't it?
I think that's done. I think that's done, and it did not look a very significant impact with the barrier.
Again, however, if it's just done enough to tag the tyre and pop a drive shaft, it might not have been able to move under its own steam, or they might have decided they can only crane it behind the barriers.
Or if you had a spool diff, you maybe have made it back to the pits.
right, there's Alan in his 1950s NASCAR technology. Jeroen Blekemolen down the inside of the 75 Iron Lynx Ferrari, gets by Andrea Piccini. I'll tell you what, in the second stint on its tyres, this Project One Porsche is really starting to fly, and behind him, here comes the Proton car, Michele Beretta as well. So the Proton Felbermeyer livery car closing in behind, and behind them is the that's not the Hub Auto car, Marcos Gomez. So there's another.
That's one of the
Iron Lynx cars. Yeah, that's the car. It's not the car of Manuel Agostino. That's the car of Claudio Schiavone. That's
no.
down.
That is Andrea Piccini's 75 car. That was the very late addition to the field.
Yeah. Battle for third in GT Pro, going by the Red River Sport Ferrari. That's a GTE AM car, and through goes Nicky Team, with James Collado following him. And who's in the Red River car? Is that Bon Grimes?
That's Charlie Hollings is aboard the car now.
Getting out of the way because they're not paying attention to me. And behind, look at the battle, Dragon Speed. That is
that's the other Dragon Speed car,
that
the
is
second
their
one.
lead car, isn't it? That's their regular car, Henrik Hedman, under pressure from Matavos. It's not Matavos, it's a car behind him, so it's somebody else who's a lap down, possibly. The Aston and the Ferrari, third and fourth, up the hill, through the Dunlop Bridge, and then plunging down through the S's, past where you would find the fun fair, the barbecues, the beer stands, the freaks, and everything else.
I think that is the recovering EDEX Sport car behind Henrik Hedman, so I think it's looking to unlap itself from the 27.
You might be right. Might well be right. So unlapping itself from 18th in the field, Paul-Luc Chatin. And I'm not sure there's enough beer in Le Mans to reward the IDEX Sport crew for the work that they did to rebuild not one but two cars. It is indeed the IDEX Sport car. Henrik Hedman, the Danish businessman, at the wheel of the white and blue liveried Dragon Speed car. And down the inside, Paul-Luc not allowing the Ferrari to get in his way. I have business here. Stay out of the way, Sunbeam. Alex Lynn leads in GT Pro for Aston Martin ahead of Miguel Molina. The battle you're looking at, and they're looking at, is the battle for third. Nicky Team's Aston Martin versus James Collado's Ferrari. And Paul-Luc Chatin, I don't care if you were a world champion, I'm coming through.
Yeah, the going past GT Pro cars for Paul-Luc Chatin, these are moves for position.
Yep.
Not at the moment for the LMP2 field.
Slightly unfair battle, as he has a very much quicker car than the GT cars, particularly off the corners. 650 horsepower now in the LMP2 cars. They really are rocket sledges.
Now to 27th overall, the EDEX Sport car.
Now we're hearing from the pit lane from Alex Legui that the right-hand side door, the passenger door, the one he can't reach of the IDEX Sport car, is open, and they're absolutely right. The camera picks it up there, Alan.
He had that problem as well in the warm-up, if we remember. They've repaired the cars overnight because of the big crashes, and they've had a problem with the latches. The latches are very sophisticated, and there's a lot of pressure comes into the cockpit which needs to be released, and if it can't be released, then it does build up a pressure. In the past, we've seen doors being blown off when the catches weren't strong enough, but this one is clearly, it's got enough air pressure to keep it closed but not actually in position, so he'll have to stop for that.
Yeah, and now that it's being picked up on camera, then race control will hand them a black and orange flag and say come in and get that sorted, and unfortunately that's another little issue that they really didn't need. However, is the sun coming out? Do you know, I could swear that looks like a little bit of sunshine down on the Mulsanne Straight, ligne droite des Unodières, as we watch Jeroen Blekemolen battling with Andrea Piccini's Ferrari behind him, then the purple car, that is the purple car of Jeroen Blekemolen, then the blue car of Michele Beretta, and behind him, that is the Hub Auto car, so Marcos Gomez has overcome his shock at going fully locked up through this group and has now rejoined at the back. That Hub Auto car is going quickly.
It is. This is the battle for 8th, 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th in class.
And behind the yellow Ferrari is the next car up. That's Jan Magnussen. Well, at least he's in a yellow car, even if it doesn't have a Corvette V8 at the front.
Contractual.
Do you think that is it? You're allowed to roast something else, but it's got to be yellow. But in which case, he had a choice of 2 Ferraris here, didn't he? Much more yellow would have been the car guy's MR racing car, but he's got a degree of yellow on JMW.
Yeah, there's Pantone specificity in his contract.
Is there indeed? I wonder if that extends to Kevin Magnussen's contract as well. We'll wait and see. Out of the slowest corner on the circuit, Arnage. And down on the public road that they were racing in the early 1920s and 30s. And of course, when you watch it in the Steve McQueen film, all those hedges are much closer. There were ditches on the side that no longer exist. There were milestone or kilometre stone markers. They came straight down there through Maison Blanche, which is now sidestepped by these phenomenally quick Porsche curves. And through Maison Blanche, they then shot past the pits. There were no chicanes until 1967 or 8, I think. It might have been the 68 race that had a first ever chicane before the pit lane. And a throwback to the late 1980s, early 1990s, there's a floppy on track.
The floppy on track, but an overtaking about to happen. Now the Ferrari's got a nice run round the outside. The Aston Martin got held up a little bit going in, half sort of attempt to overtake there by Nicky Team, but never quite got it done, and the Ferrari's through into second.
Yeah, Nicky Team trying to make the Ferrari go the long way round both him and the Iron Dames car in front, but in the end he wasn't quite as quick as the Ferrari. So the Iron Dames Ferrari, Manuela Gosner, number 85 car, 16th in the GTE Anfield, is the undoing there unwittingly of Nicky Team. The Aston Martin just catching her quite the wrong place, and through goes James Collado up into 3rd place. So Ferrari now 2nd and 3rd. Aston Martin, who were 1-2, are now 1st and 4th. How things change as tyres wear and fuel burns off.
Absolutely, 29 car battling back. You're absolutely right. Ford chicane came in 1968, a year before Armco barrier was added to the circuit.
Yeah. Watch the Steve McQueen film. It's the same, but it is very, very different. And I suppose that's true for this year. 20 seconds added to the next pit stop of car 21. So Panis Racing are having a bit of a trying time.
Well, that's Dragon Speed, and that's the other car
that is right, yeah,
that should have taken that pit stop infringement.
Is that because of that, or is it a different one? Because remember, they had to take something for not slowing down correctly under full course yellow.
They were definitely the other 20
They had a 20-second penalty for sure. Is that because they did not take it, or is that because they get another penalty for something else?
Well,
hard to tell, isn't it?
They've just left after a second stop and have not taken what looks to me like to be a regular pit stop
So
timing.
they haven't taken the penalty.
At which point, having not taken it twice now, they are at risk of getting a further penalty here.
You would say first time is you've forgotten any. Second time, that is willful.
Yeah, we remembered it before the start of the race, so I think they should.
Yes. And Dragon Speed are not first-timers, and they're not rank amateurs. They do know what they're doing, and clearly, therefore, they have not bothered to take the extra 10 seconds or 20 seconds.
car with that door still open pits now and is heading down to Alex.
Well, that's a shame for them, because they are now out of sync. That may not hurt them. That may come back to them if other things change.
It will drop them back behind the GTs they've just slogged away to get by because they just rejoined, at least positionally, albeit 2 laps down, or a lap down, the LMP2 train. They've gone by all of the GT field on the lap before the one where they've pitted.
So looking back at the battle for 7th place, that's a floppy. And I tell you what, I bet it's not very floppy when it hits the front of your car at that sort of speed. Let's hear from the 92 Porsche team. Michael Christensen on board.
Information that Jimmy took left side tyres only. Left side tyres for Jimmy. Yeah, so he just let me back, no? Tell me what he told you. Jimmy knows that you are coming on new tyres. Jimmy knows you are coming on new tyres. Yeah, because I have a Ferrari behind me, so I just want to... Understood.
Remember the last time there was a conversation from Jimmy Bruni? What did he say, Martin?
That was not the answer to the question that he was hoping to get, was it? Jimmy knows you're on quicker tyres, so he'll let me by, right? He knows you're on quicker tyres. That wasn't a yes, was it?
Yeah, but it's good enough, he knows. And after the last time, though, Jimmy Bruni was complaining that he got a bit of a hit on the way past as well. The two Porsches have got to be very careful. They can't race themselves. You know, we're 1.5 hours in. I know it's very difficult. I know that adrenaline and focus and everything else. As the Rebellion's into bits, that's the number 3 car. And that was in 4th place with Nat Berton at the wheel. There's an engine cover change.
Yes.
Has it become dislodged?
Has it become loose? Has it dropped something off it? Have they got a cooling problem? Because before you start pulling radiators out, you try and think why you might have a cooling problem. For some reason, is the ducting on the bodywork, which is identical to the bodywork you ran in practice, not identical in some way?
Have they had a contact at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah, but hold on a second. How many laps since the last pit stop is the thing? Is that in pit stop sequence or out of sequence?
Yeah, it's in sequence because the one car is in now.
92, Michael Christensen worrying about whether 91 is going to let him by. Slightly more worrying is that Tony Villander had just gone by him in the WeatherTech Ferrari like he was standing still. So and the WeatherTech car had not had a tyre change, I don't think, but the Porsche had 4 new tyres on the 92 car, left sides only on the 91.
Yeah, Tony Villander, as quick as he ever was in a Ferrari, those with reasonable memories will remember the fantastic run the Le Mans 24 Hours in 2016 when Ford were coming here to look to dominate, and the one team that stood between them was Risi Competizione at that point, with one Tony Villander in absolutely sparkling form.
He does respond well to this race, doesn't he, Tony?
Origin, mass value.
Bruno Senna stays in. Fuel going in at Chettilar as well. So who was in that? Giorgio Sernagiotto. So they did start with their gentleman driver. On board the 92 car, down into the left at Indianapolis. On the fastest approaches to a corner on the circuit. He's right up behind Vilander, and there is traffic in front. Of course, with the prototype car, he's going to open the doors. There's the Iron Dames car. 91 goes through. And is that the Risi Ferrari in front? It is the Risi Ferrari in front. So Risi Competizione, Sebastian Bourdais, 5th place in GTE Pro. The red and white Porsche, Jimmy Bruni, the pole sitter, 6th place. Then the AM car of Manuela Gosner with the pink and black livery. Through goes the WeatherTech car. Tony Vilander finds the gap, and that opened up nicely, didn't it, for Michael Christensen? He knew it would. He could plot the trace of the Ferrari in front, knew that it would go by.
He was very, very wide through the right-hander and offline a little bit.
It's because he'd been offline going through past the Ferrari, hadn't he? He had to really tighten it through there and just ran out wide, but he's still with Tony Vilander in the white WeatherTech Ferrari.
So to me, it's looking like the Porsches don't have the straight line speed. Do you think there's anything they can do during the race, Alan, to help their straight line speed? Because look at the Ferrari just drive away.
Well, that they can only do it on engine mapping. Engine mapping means using more fuel and things, so, you know, if they've dropped straight line speed, Peter, at this moment in time, then I think they've got a slight issue. But I would think their biggest issue right now is they don't even look that good in the corners either.
Leader of the pits, 7 Toyota powers into the pits, Mike Conway at the wheel.
Peter Dumbreck joins us in the commentary lineup, and so we'll send Alan off to do something useful like make the tea. We also will be joined by Jamie Campbell-Walter and Ben Constant-Giros throughout the course of the race. Alex Le Guy and Hayley Edmonds. Alan throws his headset down in disgust. He's been dismissed. He's been called into the pits early, just when he was really enjoying himself. Don't worry, he'll be back as the gloaming of the evening arrives. Here is our race leader then, Mike Conway. Had over a minute in hand over Sebastian Buemi, but don't forget, Buemi stopped earlier, and stopped earlier the second time as well. Algarve Pro's Simon Trummer versus Ollie Jarvis in G-Drive Racing by Algarve. So these are garage mates duking it out for 8th place.
Also, both regular drivers in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Ollie in the Mazda DPI as a factory driver. Simon, well, a couple of years now in IMSA Racing.
Got a few of those in the field.
Yeah, we have.
Harry Tinknell to name but 1, Jan Magnussen to name but 2. And very, very disappointed not to have the Corvette racing team here, but I think they made a sensible decision quite early in the game that it was unlikely that they'd really get a chance to come to Le Mans. Now then, here's the 38 Jota Sport car, the blue and yellow car, Antonio Felix da Costa, right behind Algarve Pro's Simon Trummer. So Antonio Felix da Costa, since we looked at that battle 2 minutes ago, has dived past Ollie Jarvis, and what's worse for Ollie Jarvis is the 36 Senior Tech Alpine car is closing in from behind as well. Now that won't be for position. Andre Negrão is a long way back in that white-roofed blue car, but it's a distraction he does not need. David Richards, the chairman of Aston Martin Racing.
And Motorsport UK.
And Motorsport UK.
48th position at the moment for the 36 Signatech Alpine. The other little thing about the group of cars we're looking at the moment, headed by that 25 car, then the 38, then the 16, those three all Goodyear rubber.
Yep. In fact, the Algarve Pro car is not the lead Goodyear runner, because the lead Goodyear runner is Will Stevens for Jackie Chan GC Racing, who is currently first in LMP2. And in fact, he's 2.5 seconds ahead of Felipe Albuquerque, so that must have happened in the pit lane, right?
Well, he did a 53-second stop, so he's double stinting those Goodyears. That's the thing that's made the difference, and that is why we go racing with a tyre battle, isn't it?
Yep.
How far can you stretch them?
Just looking at the
Let's hear from Felipe Albuquerque.
He's a bit perplexed, isn't he, about the speed of James Allen at this point of the race. You can hear the frustration in the Portuguese driver's voice. That's not a driver he would normally expect to be going head-to-head with.
Except that he does quite often in European Le Mans Series racing. So
I would not expect him to be above Felipe Albuquerque's pace. Alan?
I think we've just got to remember Albuquerque hasn't seen anyone in this race. He started on pole position, disappeared off into the distance, was following the LMP1 cars, and then suddenly after the pit stop he's came out after the shuttle through. He's in second, or he's not in second actually, he's down in third because one car didn't take tyres, being the leader in category Will Stevens on the Goodyear, and so they didn't take tyres, they just did refueling, and hence they've got a little bit of a lead right now.
A valid point actually, if slightly facetious, as he's used to chasing the Bicoles car in LMP1, and okay, this is a non sequitur. Someone's in front of me. Is this for position or is he a lap down?
I wasn't being facetious, by the way, I was being honest.
I know you weren't. So the Algarve Pro car, Simon Trummer, still just ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa. Ollie Jarvis with the orange and black G-Drive colours, one of two G-Drive cars, 26 their regular car, and there is another G-Drive racing by Algarve car, that is Ollie Jarvis. The regular team car, Jean-Eric Verne, is at the wheel of that, and that is in 7th place in LMP2, 12th place overall. So far, our 5 LMP1 cars are staying ahead of the LMP2 field. So Peter, everybody's settling down into the race by this stage. You've got an hour and a half under your belt, you've done a couple of pit stops, so now all of those, you know, first night nerve, the jangly bits, they're all starting to soothe, and now we're into a proper race.
That's it. You know, you'll get a lot of teams are still on their first driver as well, but gradually as this race goes on and you cycle through the drivers, as you say, you calm everyone's nerves. Still getting hotter out there. You mentioned the sun is out, the clouds have broken a bit, it's about 25 degrees and track temperature is about 35 degrees. So we are more closer to what we've been like earlier in the week, but as you said a couple of times already, we are looking like we're going to get rain in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and it's still 10 degrees cooler than it was at any stage over the weekend, or over the week so far. Mike Conway ahead of Sebastian Buemi, and of course that left rear on the number 8 car only did 8 laps because they had a puncture, so that is part of one set that they will not get to use again. But Buemi is right up behind the leader, and here we go, pass for position. He's got DRS open. He doesn't have DRS open, obviously. But he's...
Is this the first time we've actually seen these cars so close together during this race as well?
Yes.
I was about to say, what's going on here is because, of course, we had the puncture for the 8 car. There are effectively going to be about a pit stop apart when the sequence blends out the other way.
Now then, having mentioned earlier on that Giancarlo Fisichella was going extremely well in GTE AM, and in fact was leading. The car is currently in 4th place, and I said he hadn't yet attracted the attention of the stewards. He has obviously now attracted the attention of the stewards, and the car has been handed a penalty. And
it's another fine Le Mans tradition maintained.
Well, another fine racing tradition. Let's hear what the Toyota team have to say. Mike Conway, the race leader, has been on the blower. Ah, he's asking, did they change tyres? Changed only one. So through goes the number 8 car, Sebastian Buemi, double Le Mans winner in the last 2 years, twice in the last season, and he goes through into the lead over Mike Conway. But as you said, Graham Goodwin, they are on a different pit stop strategy because of that tyre change, and that one worn tyre may come back to make a bit of a difference between the number 8 and the number 7 car. Confirmation, by the way, from Dempsey Proton, the number 88 car is the first retirement of the race. It completed just 8 laps.
That's really sad. 9 laps since number 8 actually made that stop for the single tyre, the punctured tyre. So another 5 laps before we see the 8 back on pit road, at which point the 7 will continue.
So a big difference in fuel weight in the cars in that case, so you would expect that Mike Conway gradually, as the fuel comes up, will go a bit quicker.
Now, did they top the 8 up with fuel? I guess they did, because he was in there. Alan's putting his thumb up, so yes, we're guessing with that. So number 8 leads from number 7. Rebellion 3rd and 4th by Coles in 5th. Jackie Chan DC Racing leading in LMP2 for Goodyear, ahead of Graf United, High Class, and United's 32 car. And then the Duquesne team in 11th place overall, that is 6th in LMP2. Make that 5th because Will Stevens has come onto the pit road. And looking down, Aston Ferrari, the 1, 2, 3 in the GTE Pro class. As we head towards the 2-hour mark.
Tony Wielander now is by the second Porsche. In fact, Michael Christensen also by Gian-Maria Bruni.
Yeah, so the Porsches are hanging out the back of the GT Pro field.
It's a little bit sad to see that, because we'd love to see a nice tight battle between all the manufacturers.
Hey, listen, it's not going to be warm and dry for the rest of the race, so who knows how it's going to swap.
And we do know that the Porsches are good in the wet conditions.
Yeah. 88 Dempsey Proton, that is out of the race. MR severely delayed, as is the 60 Iron Lynx car. Aston Martin 1-2 in GTE AM. As we look down on the Toyotas, number 8 has gone by, but number 7 is right there as well, down the inside. Wow, into the Porsche curves. Did somebody just say to Mike Conway, you can use multi-21? What happened there? No, that was 8 going by Conway. So Conway got back past.
Or was that a replay of the...
That is a replay of the pass. Yes, it is. So we didn't see that shot before. For those of you yelling at your telly, I was looking at the pictures in the middle, not at the replay logo at the top left. Black and white flag for Kenta Yamashita, for Nobu Yamanaka in the Eurasia Motorsport car, which has had a couple of high-speed side steps to the chicane. WeatherTech versus Risi, 2 regular IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series contenders, and the WeatherTech car goes by and squirrels its way through the chicane ahead of the Risi car, and that was the change for 5th place. Tony Wielander ahead of Sebastian Bourdais.
He's passed 3 cars in the last few laps. That's old Tony, yes. So there's a bit of speed in that car.
Duquesne versus G-Drive, and this is Tristan Gomidi ahead of Jean-Eric Verne. The Orica ahead of the Aurus, which is essentially an Orica with a different chassis plate on it. And just ahead of him is Alex Brundle, who is in 4th place in the United Autosport car. Just behind is which of the Rebellions? That is the number 1 car, I think, isn't it? Being driven by Bruno Senna. Straight down the inside, it is Senna's yellow helmet inside. And Matt Griffin in front in the Ferrari, the AM class car. another car run by AF Corsa, one of the 762 they've got in the race, the number 55 Spirit of Race Ferrari. And the deal here, Peter, when you're in a GT car with fast prototypes coming past you, is not to lose time.
Exactly, yeah, you almost, it's better to just lift out and cost yourself half a second rather than cost yourself a second or 2 seconds if you fight them.
Just watching as well the way in which the Rebellion is dealing with the traffic here goes back to the Duquesne car. It's all about momentum there as well in comparison with the Toyotas. It doesn't have that cartoon-like acceleration out of the turns. Needs to keep the speed up to produce a lap time. That's where the biggest advantage
Okay, hold on.
when we get into race running comes.
On board with the Jota car, this is another of our Goodyear shod runners, Antonio Felix da Costa. Portuguese driver chasing down the Swiss. Simon Trummer ahead of him in the Algarve Pro Racing car. This is a very tight battle. Look, the Senior Tech car dives into the pit lane. I was just about to say that he's closing right up to this, trying to unlap himself. But into the pit lane comes Andre Negrão at the end of his second stint.
And a huge lock-up to the speed limit line there for Negrão. Huge.
Number 1 Rebellion just diving through in third place. Not quite enough room to get by the Project 1 car of your own Blake Molan. Late. Here we go. There's an apex there somewhere, but he ain't going to make it. Well, Peter, that's always the problem when you're in the quick cars lapping the traffic, isn't it? You've just got to make the moves. Again, same deal as with the slower cars. You don't want to lose any time in traffic.
That's it, yeah. I mean, it's such a fine line sometimes. And as this race goes on and, you know, one or two, three, four cars start to drop out, it just makes life a little bit easier for you when there's fewer cars on the track.
Again, past the Red River car, which appears to be the TCR Jammer car in almost every LMP2 battle. Just happens to be in the way. Going by the number 11 Euro International car of Eric Maris, so there's been a driver change there, and squeezing down through the middle, Kenty Yamashita. He does know a gap when he sees one, doesn't he? Even half a gap, goes by the Iron Dames, goes by the Euro International car, and he stretched his legs away from the G-Drive car of Jean-Eric Verne. That was Duquesne car, wasn't it?
That's Gomondi.
Yeah, well,
they're pretty similar, but Tristan Gomondi looking very racing, but he's looking to get a bit of clean air, isn't he?
Yeah,
Head of that chasing car.
He's done a great job. He's really opened the gap up on Jean-Eric Verne. It was under a second. It's now more like 3.5 or 4 seconds into Duquesne car. And I think we saw the beginning of a move from Antonio Felix da Costa through the S's on the Algarve Pro car of Simon Trummer. It hasn't come off for him yet. Riding on board with our race leader, Sebastian Buemi, into the pit lane. Not into the pit lane, into the pit lane.
Yes. That's early.
Yep. Well, don't forget.
That feels early to me.
Out of sequence a little with the number 7 car. Talking about a sequence, by the way, 37, the Jackie Chan DC Racing car, they took an opportunity to put themselves out of sequence with the whole LMP2 field so they weren't stacking up with everyone else. Alan's flapping and waving.
It's okay, we're just communicating through the medium of international sign language.
My teacup appears not to be on my desk full of tea.
Comments on the radio? Equal no tea.
I think what we call a management lesson there.
It does make a fine cup of tea, though.
I'm refreshed. It's Oracle Orica. It's the 25 car to the outside, up the inside though goes the Toyota Sport car. That's
the move he tried to make half a lap ago on the Algarve Pro car, and he squeezes through.
Well, it's happened twice on this lap, actually. He's gone by him and gone by him again, so that's been something of a bit of a battle, but away he goes.
So the Toyota Sport car goes by Simon Trummer. There's the Dragon Speed Garage on our right as we saw it. The blue number 21 car, and on the left-hand side, the white car crew. And the 92 Porsche, as the fuel lurk burns off, starting to come back into it a bit. Don't forget, though, this car with 4 new tyres and a fresh driver at the last stop, Seb Bourdais, on the tyres on which he started the race 90 minutes ago in the Risi Competizione Ferrari.
We talked about that 2016 race with Ford versus Ferrari. Well, the man aboard this car, the 82 car, Seb Bourdais, was in that winning Ford at the time and stands, well, with the potential at this race, the only man to win a race for Ford and Ferrari at Le Mans.
Now, I was wondering whether Porsche might be able to trim the car out for a bit more top-line speed, but look, when you get a head-on shot of these cars coming towards you...
It's bye-bye time, isn't it?
Yeah,
the rear wing is almost generating lift. It's so far canted back. I mean, it's generating no downforce, and no downforce means no drag. Look, that's the red and white. That's the underside of the wing. Look at it when you get a high shot. The top side of the wing is not red and white.
Bourdais made a mistake there. And that's the Porsche through. Here comes the 8 car. Wow.
Yeah, momentarily the Porsche goes through. See, the problem with the 8 car, though, is he ran off the side of the main part of the road onto the, onto the side of the road.
But watch him close straight back in again.
Yeah. Every time a prototype goes over, or anybody else goes off the main racing track, they're onto bits that don't get swept because they're gravelly and dirty and mucky, and that's where debris lurks. Every time you have to put wheels off to go past, Peter, you're risking the chance that you might pick up some debris and pick up a puncture. Well, the Risi Ferrari right behind that 92 Porsche, closing in the Euro International car. This is the yellow and green car, one of 2 teams that are racing an LMP2 car for the very first time into Europol competition, rather. Matavos Isakayan in the yellow and green car into Europol, and Nielsen racing an LMP2 car for the first time. Nielsen in 15th in LMP2 with Alex Capadia at the wheel. And the into Europol car flying on straight through the chicane, Matt Griffin. Just a glance in the mirror probably to see where the LMP2 car was, and at the wrong place. Back again with our G-Drive versus Duquesne battle, and Jean-Eric Van closing in on Tristan Gomedy. Gomedy just sort of half a generation ahead of him up the single-seater ladder, 4 or 5 years ahead of Jev. Maybe 5 or 10, in fairness, I guess. Tristan Gomedy racing in top-flight single-seaters, as did Jean-Eric Van before becoming a sports car racer. Some great views from overhead for those of you watching at home. One of the bittersweet bits of this year's Le Mans is that you'll be able to see probably quite often the empty campsite where you might otherwise be. And the absence of spectators, understandable, but very much felt as a missing part of the jigsaw puzzle this season by the teams and drivers.
Puncture for the 92 Porsche. I'm told that car is going to be coming in any moment now. Front right.
So much for getting by the Ferrari. When the Ferrari made a mistake, Porsche now have to come in and sacrifice another tyre. Michael Christensen stays in, fuel goes in, and the tyre will be changed.
Just a thought, we saw Bourdais effectively oversteering, we thought, through the second chicane. Was he avoiding debris? Is that why there's a puncture? Did he avoid debris that the Porsches then hit?
Or has the Porsche run out wide, as we saw the Toyota doing to get round the 2 of them, and just picked up some debris from the side of the track? The problem is when you've had 2 or 3 races already today, there are bits and bobs lying around that the marshals can't spot with the naked eye.
And the 92 car did have a full set of tyres on the last stop, didn't it? Whereas the 91 car only took 2 new tyres.
There's a Goodyear airship. Graham Goodwin is going to get a great view, a unique view of Le Mans from there. And the 91 Porsche also being handed a black and white flag for track limit abuse. Graf under pressure. And this is for the lead of the race. Felipe Albuquerque pulls out of the slipstream in the United Autosports number 22 car. The more blue on his red, white and blue. Goes a long way around the outside. No. James Allen says no. And right behind is the 3rd placed high-class car number 33, Kenji Yamashita. So that is behind the green and yellow car. 1st, 2nd and 3rd. And that miscue by Albuquerque gives Yamashita a run. Albuquerque now sticking to the driver's left. That's the inside line. Down to the second chicane. Yamashita on the inside, but Albuquerque, I beg your pardon, down to Mulsanne corner. Yamashita on the inside. Albuquerque with more grip and the momentum to go around the outside. Yamashita had to pull his nose out of that hole. Oh, the car guy's Ferrari of Kai Cozzolino goes off. And through comes Alex Brundle. Jan van Uitert helmeting up. He's getting ready for a driver change, so we should see LMP2 cars coming in soon. Patrick Pilet in the pits for IDEC Sport. He's now 20th in LMP2. Let's hear from Albuquerque.
I mean, those cars around you have done the same amount of laps as what you have off those tyres.
That was the voice of Gary Robertshaw, who heads up the engineering lineup at United Autosports. Next up, the voice of Ben Constanduros, who will be leading the team through the next couple of hours.
Thank you very much, Martin.
Just one quick thing. I'll say these words, and I'm not really very confident of them. We're going to say them anyway. I think Felipe Albuquerque is a little rattled here. He's not expecting this. He was not
between the lines, yes.
I think he was expecting, with what he thought he got underneath him and what he thinks he's putting into that, to be dominating this race, and he simply is not. James Allen doing a great job at the front of the race, having not changed the tyres on that car, and Kenta Yamashita is showing just how good he is. Absolutely, he's going to be a future Toyota factory driver, without a shadow of doubt, in World Endurance Championship. Already a champion in Super GT, and I think at the moment the Portuguese star is surprised by not being where he expected to be in this competition.
And every time we've seen Kenta Yamashita get into that high-class racing machine, he has been one of the fastest LMP2 competitors throughout all of our practice sessions. The car itself hasn't necessarily featured at the top of the timing screens when he's not been in. Well, that's a nice little slow-mo, a little bit of opposite lock, and then a little bit of understeer having corrected. That is James Allen in our lead car, and another little bit of traffic for these guys to contend with the 95 Aston Martin being caught just in the wrong place for our lead car. Graham Goodwin heading up to the blimp for the next couple of hours. So Jamie Campbell-Walter joins us in the box.
Hello, hello. What's been happening then?
You've been watching, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
1 hour on, 1 eye on this, 1 hour on something else.
Yeah, I had a nice lunch, watched the start. Quite surprising to see how many problems there were in LMP2 in the first few laps, I thought. Big shame for Tommy Branning, a Porsche Junior in the Porsche, because, to be honest, he was just avoiding action.
If it feels okay, we should do a full stint. I think so. Unless it feels terrible. No, it doesn't feel terrible. It's just understeer and oversteer. Okay.
General lack of grip then.
Yeah. And a little bit less kind of frantic, that message. That was more of a discussion rather than a, what am I doing? Why am I not going as fast as I should be? But he is not. He's slightly dropping back from James Allen right now on pace as we see it. And Yamashita did have a sniff going into Tetra Rouge that last time. Behind this battle for the first 3 positions in LMP2 is the next of our United Autosports cars. Alex Brundle just 2.8 seconds back from this group right now, and running on his own with a decent gap to the next car. In fact, you can see him in the back, a shot there, and there's no other LMP2 car for another 9 seconds before you get to the battle between Gomendy and Verne that we saw a little bit earlier on.
Oh yeah, let's see if Alex can close up over the course of the next few laps.
Great to see the top 4, isn't it? So close after an hour and a half, just over an hour and a half of racing, and the top 3 really nose to tail.
Now, Dragon Speed in the pits, being refueled. Juan Pablo Montoya was in that car. And it's getting a full service. So do we think the double stinting of the Goodyear tyre worked out for... it was Jackie Chan's car that did that. They've actually pitted for their second stop. Perhaps a little bit early than they should have done, because the Goodyear didn't make it the full...
Alright, I'm gonna end the stream. I'm pretty much done for today. I might stream tomorrow, not sure.
Exactly what kind of laps they could do.
I I know the Gabby Albury car pitted
Yeah,
just
thanks
out of
for
sync